Chapter 1774. How dare you? Mo Qingyuan couldn't bear it any longer. He pointed at the bamboo in the air and shouted angrily. Xiaohua, you've gone too far. I'll let you have a taste of my flying wood dragon chopper. With a whoosh, the bamboo suddenly shrunk until it was only 3 inches long. It flashed with an unusual green light in the air, and actually transformed into a small dragon, pouncing towards Xiaohua. Senior is really turning hostile. Xiaohua sneered and patted his forehead. The cloud-suppressing seal flew out of his body in a crooked manner, releasing an earthy yellow light that protected Xiaohua's entire body. Magic treasure? You actually have a magic treasure? Mo Qingyuan's expression changed greatly. He pointed his finger, and the flying wood dragon chopper stopped in midair. He then carefully looked at the cloud-suppressing seal and sneered. This magic treasure of yours is precisely affected by the magnetic force. With your chi refining magic power, how long do you think you can last? Ha ha ha, Xiaohua laughed loudly and said. How long? Junior has never thought about how long. As long as Junior can't see any hope, Junior's storage pouch will immediately explode. Everything in it, such as spirit stones, medicinal pills, and those puppets that already have the surname Xiao, will vanish like smoke before I die. Haha, Mo Qingyuan pointed at the wooden dragon chopper, and the chopper turned back into bamboo and flew back into his hand. He said with a smile, Fellow Daoist Xiao, I just wanted to show you my skills and let you know that cooperating with me will definitely bring you benefits. I don't mean anything else. Fellow Daoist, don't misunderstand. I won't. Xiaohua also smiled. He opened his mouth, and the cloud-suppressing seal shrank again. Seeing that Xiaohua also had many methods, Mo Qingyuan suddenly felt helpless. It wasn't that he couldn't kill Xiaohua. After all, he was a Foundation establishment cultivator. How could he not have a backup plan? However, that human-shaped puppet was really important to him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taken such a huge risk to come here and find Zhongyao milk to cast a body for the puppet. However, Mo Qingyuan wasn't confident in his ability to kill Xiaohua with a single strike. If Xiaohua were to be infuriated and destroy the puppet, then his painstaking efforts of a few tens of years would be wasted. Moreover, he would lose his fortuitous encounters in the future as well. Besides, most importantly, with the secret that Xiaohua wasn't afraid of the magnetic power, Jihao would be able to rely on Xiaohua to get the Earth Crystal Yao milk, instead of the Zhong Crystal Yao milk as he had thought. Although Zhong Yao milk was useful for the casting of puppets, it was still not enough. However, it was useless for his own cultivation. Forget it. If you knew this would happen, you wouldn't have acted in the first place. When he thought about the benefits of obtaining the Earth Crystal Yao milk, and thought about how he'd actually allowed the puppet to face the enemy while he set up the sword formation, Mo Qingyuan sighed in his heart. He withdrew his hand and said, Since fellow Taoist Xiao doesn't dare to believe me, then I'll take this jade slip first. I'll make an exchange with fellow Taoist after I obtain the Earth Crystal Yao milk. Great. Xiaohua clapped his hands and said, Senior is indeed a good person who cares about the younger generation. A good person? Mo Qingyuan sneered. It was precisely because he saw that Xiaohua was actually unaffected by the magnetic power that he wanted to set up the sword formation to prevent Xiaohua from escaping. How could Xiaohua be considered a good person if he was able to control Xiaohua in one go and help him find the Earth Crystal Yao milk? I've overlooked this. When he thought of the sword formation, Mo Qingyuan suddenly cried out involuntarily and said to himself, The Azure Essence sword technique I'm cultivating promotes divine sense, and that's why I'm able to set up a sword formation and control 5 flying swords at the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm. But Xiaohua is only a cultivator at the peak of the Qi refinement realm. How could he control 8 flying swords? Moreover, he fought my Azure Essence sword formation to a draw? His divine sense is so powerful. How could he possibly be a Qi refinement cultivator? Instantly, a trace of astonishment flashed through Mo Qingyuan's eyes, and the gaze he looked at Xiaohua with was different. He'd already understood now that even if he used his final trump card, he might not be able to kill Xiaohua as he'd thought. Perhaps, the more Mo Qingyuan thought about it, the more he felt that stopping was the right choice. Moreover, when he swept Xiaohua with his divine sense once more, he confirmed that Xiaohua was only a qi refinement cultivator. Xiaohua felt Mo Qingyuan's gaze on him, so he raised his eyes and smiled. What? Is there something you're worried about, Senior Mo? There's nothing to be worried about. The more powerful fellow Taoist Xiao is, the more likely we'll be able to obtain the earth crystal Yao milk. Why would I be worried? Mo Qingyuan said with a fake smile. That's good. Xiaohua nodded. Then Senior, please tell this junior how to obtain the earth crystal Yao milk. Mo Qingyuan waved his hand, and 3 human-shaped puppets walked to the side of the hurricane tunnel. Their figures sank into the ground. And then he performed a few hand seals to place the remaining puppets near the tunnel. Xiaohua glanced at them, and pretended not to see them. He knew that Mo Qingyuan's actions were mainly to prevent others from entering. As for whether it was to prevent him from escaping, he didn't care. After everything was arranged, Mo Qingyuan descended and said with a smile, I'll naturally tell fellow Taoist Xiao how to obtain the earth crystal Yao milk later. Before I tell fellow Taoist, shouldn't we discuss how to distribute the earth crystal Yao milk first? Although Xiaohua didn't know where the earth crystal Yao milk was, he already knew that Mo Qingyuan couldn't obtain it himself because of the magnetic force. Xiaohua wasn't affected by the magnetic force, so he could only obtain the earth crystal Yao milk himself. Since he could only obtain it himself, Mo Qingyuan certainly wouldn't feel at ease. Senior Mo, how do you think we should distribute it? Xiaohua asked. Mo Qingyuan pondered for a while, then raised his head and said, I only want 3 drops. No matter how many drops there are, they'll all belong to fellow Taoist Xiao. Senior Mo, you won't lose money by saying that. Xiaohua's expression didn't change. He smiled and said, I know what the Zhongyao milk is, and I only want 1 drop. The earth crystal Yao milk is naturally much more precious than the Zhongyao milk. Senior, you asked for 3 drops. What if I only get 1 drop? Or 2 drops? Or only 3 drops? Wouldn't this junior's efforts be in vain? But what if you get 10 drops? Mo Qingyuan asked. Moreover, only I know the location of the earth crystal Yao milk. I found it using a secret technique. If you go and look for it, I'm afraid you won't be able to find it even after a long time. Not necessarily. Xiaohua smiled and said, Senior Mo, how do you know that I don't have the secret technique of the Thunder Control sect? Senior, don't forget how I got here. Mo Qingyuan's eyes flickered. He thought for a while and said, How about this? My bottom line is 2 drops. If you give me 2 drops, you'll have to give me 3 drops of the Zhongyao milk. As for the rest, I don't care how many drops you get. Seeing that Mo Qingyuan only said how many drops he would get, and didn't mention how to distribute them according to the ratio, Xiaohua already knew how precious the earth crystal Yao milk was. It would be good if he could get even 1 drop. Xiaohua also began to mutter to himself. If you like this work, you're welcome to vote for it at Qidian. Chapter 1775. Xiaohua's purpose in coming to the netherworld was only the Zhongyao milk. Moreover, the Zhongyao milk was useful to lightning cultivators, but it might not be useful to Xiaohua. After all, the Zhongyao milk was only used to temper the body. As for the earth crystal Yao milk, it seemed that if Xiaohua didn't agree to Mo Qingyuan's conditions, Mo Qingyuan would definitely not tell him what it was or how to use it. Of course, Xiaohua could choose not to agree, and then he and Mo Qingyuan could only meet in battle. Fighting a life-and-death battle with a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator wasn't a wise choice for Xiaohua, who was a qi refiner, especially under the circumstances where there was no special reason. Fine, then I'll bear with it. Xiaohua made up his mind and said with a smile, Since Senior needs the earth crystal Yao milk like this, then I'll take a step back as well. I can only guarantee to give Senior 1 drop. If there's only 1 drop, then I'll give it to Senior. If there are 2 drops, then I'll be so bold as to keep 1 drop. This Mo Qingyuan was overjoyed in his heart, but he was hesitant on the surface and said, 1 drop isn't enough for me. After that, Mo Qingyuan had a resolute expression as he gritted his teeth and said, All right, I'll do as fellow Taoist Xiao says. However, I'll take 5 drops of the Zhongyao milk. No. Xiaohua shook his head like a rattledrum. Senior got the earth crystal Yao milk first, then I'll take 4 drops of the Zhongyao milk first. Why do you want 4 drops? Mo Qingyuan was stunned and said curiously, fellow Taoist, you don't know the power of the Zhongyao milk, right? Ordinary cultivators only need 1 drop to temper their body. Junior can at least leave 3 drops as a gift. Xiaohua rolled his eyes at him. Fine. Mo Qingyuan once again said with a pained expression, since fellow Taoist Xiao wants 4 drops, then why don't we split it 50-50? Ha ha ha. Senior Mo. Xiaohua clapped and said, Senior, could it be that you really think I'm an idiot? Why didn't you split the earth crystal Yao milk 50-50 earlier? You only thought of splitting it 50-50 after getting the Zhongyao milk? There's no need to talk about the earth crystal Yao milk. You and I have already agreed. Mo Qingyuan said in all seriousness. At this moment, we're discussing the Zhongyao milk. How about this? Let's split it 40-60. You get 60% and I get 40%. I'm sorry, Senior. Junior's bottom line is 70%. Junior gets 70%, Senior gets 30%. Xiaohua said without hesitation. Mo Qingyuan stared at Xiaohua, an indescribable meaning in his eyes. After a long while he nodded and said, since that's the case, we'll do as you say. Swear an oath of your heart. Senior, you don't have to be idle. Please make a heart oath as well. After exiting the passageway, you can't attack me within the netherworld. Xiaohua immediately said. All right. Mo Qingyuan agreed. He looked at Xiaohua and made an oath. He also made an oath. Senior, you can now tell me the difference between earth crystal Yao milk and Zhongyao milk. Xiaohua said with a smile. Don't wait for me to take the wrong one. I don't have enough time to wait. All right, come with me. Mo Qingyuan nodded and formed a seal. His entire body gradually sank into the ground. It was the 5 elements escape technique. Xiaohua clapped his hands and took out an earth escape talisman. He put it on himself and also followed Mo Qingyuan into the ground. There were also space cracks underground in this space. Beside the cracks, there were some puppet fragments. Obviously, they were left behind by Mo Qingyuan when he drove the puppet to explore the way. As for Mo Qingyuan, although he was very familiar with the path, he was still very careful. After taking a few steps, he would stop and observe for a while before moving again. As he walked, he explained the difference between Zhongyao milk and earth crystal Yao milk. Zhongyao milk was the condensation of earth element spiritual energy. It should be very easy to obtain in this space filled with magnetic force. As for earth crystal Yao milk, it was a treasure formed by Zhongyao milk condensing into earth crystals under the effect of magnetic force. Isn't this a fire essence flame crystal? Xiaohua suddenly realized and thought to himself, it's just that this is earth element spiritual energy, and the fire essence flame crystal is fire element spiritual energy. Of course, because of magnetic force, Zhongyao milk is only on the surface of the magnetic stone, while earth crystal Yao milk is in the center of the magnetic stone. Mo Qingyuan said casually after explaining the difference between the two. What? In the center of the metal earth magnetic stone? Xiaohua stopped and waved his hand. Senior Mo, why didn't you say this earlier? Although I have the earth escape talisman, and can get close to the metal earth magnetic stone, it's impossible for me to enter the metal earth magnetic stone. If this old man didn't make any preparations, I'm afraid you'll think I'm a freeloader. Mo Qingyuan sneered and landed in a pitch-black cave. The cave was pathetically small, only 10 feet wide. The further one went, the lower the cave became. I wouldn't dare. I'm just asking. As Xiaohua spoke, he took out the bright flower stone. As soon as the bright flower stone was taken out of the storage bag, a huge force pulled the bright flower stone. Xiaohua couldn't control it at all. The bright flower stone flew out of his hand and into the cave. This place is close to the metal earth magnetic stone. Nothing with metal earth can escape. Can't you see that even this old man can't resist it? You still took out the bright flower stone? Mo Qingyuan mocked. Xiaohua looked up. Indeed, there was a faint green light flashing around Mo Qingyuan's body. It was obvious that he was using some kind of secret technique, to resist the metal earth magnetic stone. This old man has never heard of a secret technique that is not affected by the metal earth magnetic stone at all. Mo Qingyuan looked at Xiaohua's effortless appearance and said enviously, "This old man has planned for many years to use the puppets refined by Kuraki bamboo to resist the metal earth magnetic stone. Unfortunately, even if it's a Xiantianwood item, it's still one of the 5 elements. It's also affected by the metal earth magnetic stone. This old man has already lost many puppets here." He. Xiaohua kept his mouth shut and didn't reveal a single word. If this old man didn't cast a spell here, how could you succeed? Mo Qingyuan was still worried about his puppets and said fiercely, This young master isn't going to argue with you." Xiaohua cursed inwardly and didn't reply. Mo Qingyuan was bored and pointed with his finger. "The metal earth magnetic stone should still be inside, or it might still be below. This old man can't enter with my main body, so I only sent my puppets over to take a look. I can't give you any specific pointers. However, according to this old man's speculation, there should be a few drops of zhongyao milk on the surface of the metal earth magnetic stone. However, it's hard to say whether there are any drops of zhongyao milk. After all, zhongyao milk is formed on the surface of the metal earth magnetic stone, and it will be quickly sucked in by the powerful metal earth magnetic stone." Xiaohua's expression became slightly unsightly when he heard this. He finally understood why Mo Qingyuan wanted to split the spoils with him. However, there will definitely be earth crystal yao milk within the metal earth magnetic stone. Mo Qingyuan ignored Xiaohua's expression and said to himself. Moreover, as he spoke, he clapped his hand and took out a palm-sized bamboo slip. There were faint green runes on it, and under the effect of the metal earth magnetic stone, it slightly rippled with a faint brilliance. Mo Qingyuan passed the bamboo slip to Xiaohua and said, "This is a talisman that this old man refined. The method of using it is as follows." As he spoke, he transmitted the method of activating the talisman and how to use it to Xiaohua. When Xiaohua heard this, he closed his eyes and pondered for a while. He felt that there was nothing wrong with it and nodded. "This junior understands. Senior, please listen to the good news again." "Wait." Mo Qingyuan's expression was slightly strange and he hurriedly said, "This old man still has something to say." "What else?" Xiaohua faintly felt that something was wrong. "This talisman can only penetrate 1 foot into the metal earth magnetic stone. I'm afraid it can't penetrate even an inch further. Fellow Taoist Xiao, you still have to examine it carefully. Choosing the right place is the most important." "What?" Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He finally understood why Mo Qingyuan only wanted 1 drop of earth crystal yao milk. The metal earth magnetic stone was so strong here. Who knew how strong the metal earth magnetic stone was? Who could be confident of finding the earth crystal yao milk within 1 foot? Senior Mo. Xiaohua speechlessly shook his head and said helplessly, "This kid. I'm afraid that even if he works until the end, he won't be able to get even 1 drop of zhong yao milk. If this old man didn't have this talisman, you wouldn't even have the chance to get the earth crystal yao milk." Mo Qingyuan said disapprovingly, "Yes, and this talisman also has a time limit. As for how long it will last, it has something to do with the strength of the metal earth magnetic stone. This old man can't make wild guesses. However, it won't last more than the time it takes to brew a cup of tea." "Sigh, Senior Mo." Forget it. Xiaohua wanted to say something, but when the words reached his mouth, he swallowed them back down. What could he say? He had already made a heart oath. "This junior will leave now." "Yes, it's in that direction." Mo Qingyuan pointed his finger and nodded. Seeing Xiaohua's figure slowly disappear into the distance, Mo Qingyuan's face was filled with extreme shock. The faint green light around his body flickered rapidly, as if it was about to lose its effect. He didn't dare to delay any longer, and hurriedly formed a hand seal. His figure sank into the ground and disappeared. Xiaohua slowly walked towards the front of the cave. After walking for a while, he turned a corner, and there was no road ahead. This was also the farthest place that Mo Qingyuan said the puppets had been. At that corner, there were actually many puppets. These puppets were somewhat broken, but most of them were complete. The black light on their bodies had already disappeared, revealing their slightly green bodies. All of them were tightly pressed against the stone wall in the distance. They were probably attracted by the strong metal earth magnetic stone, and were unable to move. In the end, they used up all their spirit stones and became useless. Haha, great. Even if I can't get the earth crystal Yao milk, this trip was not in vain. When Xiaohua saw this, he was overjoyed. He walked over and used all his strength to pick up these puppets and put them into the space one by one. After Xiaohua finished putting away the puppets, he walked forward for a while and reached the end of the cave. There was no other way. It seemed that he had to use the earth escape technique again. Sigh, this is nothing. Xiaohua smiled bitterly. After thinking for a while, he activated his Buddha's sense and opened his delusion breaker Dharma eye. Ouch. When the surrounding scene was reflected in his Dharma eye, Xiaohua couldn't help but cry out in surprise. He was stunned on the spot. Chapter 1776. How gorgeous, how spectacular, and how profound was this scene. The strands of brown light intertwined with the strands of gold light, and fell from the sky like thin lines of rain. The strangest thing was that these strands of light actually formed an arc shape, and beautifully converged at a place far away from Xiaohua's feet. And at the place where the strands of light converged, it was like an oval chicken egg. The gold and brown light intertwined with each other, but they were also clearly separated, and slowly rotated. The trajectory of the rotation actually had a hint of the heavenly Tao. This oval shape should be the metal earth magnetic field. Xiaohua muttered to himself. But where is the earth crystal Yao milk? Looking at the left side of the metal earth magnetic field, there were many scarlet things firmly entangling it. That should be the netherworld wind. Not to mention that Mo Qingyuan can't get close, even if he is like this young master, unaffected by the magnetic force, and can reach here, he still can't find the location of the metal earth magnetic field. Xiaohua's heart was filled with pride. Xiaohua looked for a long time again, and finally saw a very hidden gap between the scarlet things. After pondering for a long time, he formed a seal with his hand, and very carefully entered the mountain rocks. Then, he passed through the gap between the netherworld wind, and arrived at a huge space. A space surrounded by the netherworld wind. Xiaohua's illusion breaker eye couldn't completely see how big this space was, but Xiaohua could see that there was a gap of several zhang between the netherworld wind and the metal earth magnetic field. And he was currently standing in this gap. This gap was filled with dense metal earth spiritual qi. Perhaps it was because the spiritual qi was too dense that it was able to block the netherworld wind outside. Moreover, Xiaohua couldn't use flying techniques here, and could only barely get close by using the earth escape technique. Of course, although Xiaohua's body wasn't affected by the metal earth magnetic field, an irresistible feeling came from the metal earth magnetic field in front of him, and it faintly attracted Xiaohua's storage bag, and all the magic treasures in his body. I understand now. Xiaohua felt the rich spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and came to a realization. He thought to himself, the earth's spiritual energy here is so rich, almost solid, that it can easily form the Bell Yao milk on the surface of the magnetic field. And if the earth element spiritual energy condenses in the magnetic field for a long time, it can also form the earth crystal Yao milk, right? But if that's the case, the Zhong Yao milk should be all over the surface of the magnetic field. It shouldn't be that hard to collect. Immediately, Xiaohua had another question. After all, after looking at it for a while, Xiaohua didn't see any darker brown spots on the surface of the magnetic field. On the contrary, Xiaohua saw a few dazzling golden and brown fragments within the metal earth magnetic field. However, these fragments were too far away from the surface of the magnetic field, far more than a foot away. The talisman that Mo Qingyuan gave him was probably useless. Let's see if there's any other way. Xiaohua pondered for a while, then stretched out his hand and took out the great wisdom sword. Mustering all the strength in his body, he used all his strength to stab at the metal earth magnetic field. Just as Xiaohua had expected, the metal earth origin magnetic field did not move in the slightest. Not even the slightest trace was left on its surface. Forget it, Xiaohua thought about the things in his space again. It seemed that there was nothing else useful, so he dispelled his unrealistic greed. Forming hand seals, He surrounded the metal earth origin magnetic field and looked for the dark brown fragments near the surface. Like a small ant looking for sesame seeds on a big watermelon, Xiaohua opened his illusion breaker Dharma eye and slowly looked for the Zhongyao milk and earth crystal Yao milk that might exist on the surface of the metal earth origin magnetic field. Because the outer layer of the metal earth origin magnetic field, this area of about 10 feet was full of rich golden brown. Therefore, it was just like how the naked eye saw the sun. It was only dazzling, and it was very difficult to distinguish the dark brown fragments near the surface. After the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, Xiaohua himself didn't know how big of an area he had searched. Although he could occasionally see golden fragments and dark brown fragments within the metal earth origin magnetic field, the distance was far more than a foot. Moreover, there were no special light spots on the surface. All the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was absorbed into the metal earth origin magnetic field. Alas, I'm afraid there isn't enough time. Xiaohua calculated for a moment. He still had to return to the surface, pass through the hurricane passage, and retreat from the space. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. Senior sister Sun, senior sister Kuan, and senior brother Qian. It's not that I don't want to help you, but I really have the heart but not the strength. It all depends on your own luck. Saying this, Xiaohua used his illusion breaker Dharma eye to sweep a glance at the entire metal earth origin magnetic field and said with a smile, "Eyes trip this time, isn't it the legendary saying of entering a treasure mountain and returning empty-handed?" But right at this moment, at the end of Xiaohua's illusion breaker Dharma eye's vision, a palm-sized, extremely golden brilliance flashed and disappeared, just like a person suddenly leaving. Moreover, the direction it disappeared in was completely different from the direction in which the spiritual energy of heaven and earth entered the metal earth origin magnetic field. Ah, what's that? Xiaohua was shocked. He hurriedly took out the great wisdom sword from the space. He didn't expect that in this kind of place, he would still be able to meet other cultivators. Let's go and take a look? Xiaohua was somewhat hesitant. After pondering for a moment, he said, "Since we're going back, let's go that way. If we can meet other cultivators, that would be for the best. Maybe we can get some information about the Zhongyao milk. I will only take one drop. It won't conflict with other people, right?" Thinking this, Xiaohua's hand tightened on the great wisdom sword. He used the earth escape technique and fled in the direction of the light shadow. However, after the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, Xiaohua felt that it was getting harder and harder. He looked to his left and right. The golden brilliance was becoming more and more resplendent, and the brown brilliance was gradually decreasing. Oh, I understand. This should be the place where the metal earth origin magnetic field gathers. Xiaohua suddenly understood. He looked in the direction where the golden light shadow disappeared. It was still very far away. This young master doesn't know metal escape technique. I probably can't go forward. Xiaohua was somewhat regretful in his heart, but at the same time, he was somewhat glad. Let's go. Just as Xiaohua was about to change direction, his transcendence vision saw a drop of brown light slowly drilling into the metal earth origin magnetic field in the midst of a golden brilliance io. Isn't this the Zhongyao milk? Xiaohua was wild with joy. At the same time, he also understood that this was a place where the metal earth origin magnetic field was flourishing. There was a lot of metal element spiritual qi, and the absorption of earth element spiritual qi was affected. The absorption speed was definitely not as fast as other places. Thus, the conditions for the formation of the Zhongyao milk existed. Great! Xiaohua hurriedly used his Dharma eye to look around. Sure enough, within the numerous metal qi, there were some dark brown dots that were almost black. These brown dots were like the freckles on a mortal's face. Chapter 1777. Xiaohua was overjoyed. He moved to the side of these light spots with difficulty and took out the jade bottle. However, the moment the jade bottle left his hand, it was immediately sucked away by the magnetic force. Damn it, how could this young master forget again? Xiaohua slapped his forehead and said regretfully. Immediately after, he waved his hand and was about to collect the Zhongyao milk that was seeping into the surface of the metal earth magnetic field. However, just as Xiaohua was about to collect it, he encountered another problem. The rain-like Zhongyao milk was actually incomparably heavy. Every drop seemed to have the weight of 10,000 caddies. Xiaohua was unable to collect the Zhongyao milk from the surface of the magnetic force with his mind alone. He could only use his magic power to forcibly extract it from the surface of the magnetic force and store it in his space. The amount of magic power needed to collect a drop was also extremely high. After Xiaohua collected 5 drops, 20% of the magic power in his body had been consumed. Are you kidding me? Xiaohua looked at the true energy in his body in astonishment. He understood that his magic power far exceeded his peers. His current true energy was comparable to an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator. In other words, an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator could only collect 20 drops of Zhongyao milk. However, when Xiaohua looked at the incomparably huge magnetic force in front of him, he felt relieved. You're fighting over food with this kind of natural giant. Naturally, it's not bad to get a few drops of soup. According to the agreement with Mo Qingyuan, Xiaohua could get 3.5 drops out of 5 drops of Zhongyao milk. No matter what, Shui already got 1 drop. Helplessness and Xiangyang also got some. Sinshu also got half a drop. Xiaohua then placed his gaze on the earth crystal Yao milk. After looking for a long time, sure enough, on one side of the magnetic force, there were many dark light spots. They were not very evenly distributed. Some were close to the surface, and some were far from it. Finally, Xiaohua was very gratified to see a place with several black spots. They were about a foot away from the surface. It's here. Xiaohua hurriedly rushed over. He clapped his hand and the green bamboo talisman appeared in his hand. He looked at the location of the black spots and made a hand seal to activate his magic power. When a few hand seals hit the green wood suddenly produced a huge suction force, crazily absorbing Xiaohua's magic power. Old man. His intentions are unforgivable. Xiaohua felt his magic power being absorbed by the greenwood talisman like flowing water. He immediately understood that this talisman was used by Mo Qingyuan. Mo Qingyuan was a mid-stage foundation establishment cultivator, so his talisman could naturally be used by foundation establishment cultivators. If he were an ordinary qi refinement cultivator, wouldn't his magic power be sucked dry as soon as he activated the talisman? How could he still have the chance to escape from the metal-earth magnetic field? However, Mo Qingyuan clearly knew that this talisman was a foundation establishment cultivator's talisman, yet he didn't warn Xiaohua at all. He didn't even give Xiaohua a single medicinal pill that could increase his magic power. Fortunately, Xiaohua wasn't an ordinary qi refining cultivator. After the greenwood talisman absorbed 70% of Xiaohua's magic power, it turned into a clear halo and stopped absorbing his magic power. At this moment, Xiaohua couldn't be bothered to resent Mo Qingyuan. He raised his hand and a halo covered the surface of the metal and earth magnetic field. As soon as the halo approached the metal and earth magnetic field, it immediately began to rotate. Like a whirlpool in the sea, it gradually extended into the depths of the metal and earth magnetic field. Although the halo rotated very quickly, it extended very slowly. Xiaohua watched with his Dharma eyes. The faint green brilliance gradually approached several black spots. He estimated that it would take at least a meal's worth of time to get close to those black spots. Humph! Xiaohua clapped his hands and took out some medicinal pills from his space. He opened his mouth and swallowed them. Then he sat cross-legged on the surface of the metal and earth magnetic field and used the prairie fire cultivation technique to recover his true qi. Although the metal attribute spiritual qi in this place was excessive, and there wasn't much fire attribute spiritual qi, it was still the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. Xiaohua dissolved the pill liquid in his meridians and tempered his body with the metal attribute spiritual qi. His cultivation speed wasn't much slower than usual. After a meal's worth of time, Xiaohua's magic power had already recovered by 80%. Estimating that it was about time, Xiaohua was about to open his eyes. Suddenly, a palm-sized golden light shadow appeared about 10 zhang away from Xiaohua. And inside this golden light, a vague white tiger was curiously staring at Xiaohua. Xiaohua naturally didn't know. When he opened his eyes to look, The white tiger seemed to be afraid and quickly fled into the distance. Huh. Xiaohua had just opened his eyes and hurriedly looked with his Dharma eyes. He only saw another golden light shadow disappear. Strange. Xiaohua was slightly stunned. But a squeaking sound like a mouse gnawing on wood came from the green halo vortex. Xiaohua didn't dare to be distracted and quickly looked at the source of the sound. Sure enough, the green brilliance had already dimmed. It was precisely the location of the black spots. Xiaohua cast another spell, and a suction force appeared from his hand. As Xiaohua expected, those black spots were even heavier than the zhongyao milk. Xiaohua used all his strength to pull them out of the metal-earth magnetic field. And just as those black spots left the surface of the metal-earth magnetic field, the green brilliance instantly dissipated with a schwa sound, turning into dots of fluorescent light that fell on the metal-earth magnetic field. Then, like drops of water falling into the desert, they seeped into the magnetic field and disappeared. Great! Xiaohua's Dharma eyes swept over, and knew that he had actually collected 5 drops of earth crystal Yao milk. He didn't have time to think about anything else. His mind enveloped them, and they were all collected into the space. Xiaohua had already recovered 80% of his magic power. Collecting these 5 drops of earth crystal Yao milk consumed another 30%. Now he only had 50% of his magic power left. Then, on the surface not far away from Xiaohua, Xiaohua used another 20% of his magic power to collect 5 drops of zhongyao milk. He didn't dare to delay any longer. He cast a spell and hurriedly escaped from the space along the path he came from. Just after Xiaohua's figure went far away, the white tiger emitting a golden brilliance appeared at the place where Xiaohua had just stopped. It looked at the place where the earth crystal Yao milk was extracted, sniffed it with its nose, and shook its head in puzzlement. Then it raised its head again, as if looking at Xiaohua, but also as if looking at the other side of the metal-earth magnetic field. Then it leisurely disappeared. How could Xiaohua know this? He only took some pills to recover his magic power, while looking for the gap in the netherworld wind from just now, preparing to leave this place. Just when Xiaohua found a gap and was about to leave, he stopped and looked at the other side of the metal-earth magnetic field with his Dharma eyes. He thought to himself, the metal-earth magnetic field is the convergence of the 2 attributes of metal and earth. Metal gives birth to earth, earth restrains metal. It's the 2 attributes of the 5 elements that mutually reinforce and restrain each other. Just now, I went to the extreme point of the metal magnetic field. Because the metal attribute is extremely strong, the earth attribute spiritual energy was able to condense into the point-shaped earth crystal Yao milk and stalactite Yao milk. Then, what about the extreme point of the earth magnetic field on the other side? Is there also the condensation of metal attribute spiritual energy there? Then what is the condensation of metal attribute spiritual energy? Since there's the metal-earth magnetic field, then isn't there also the earth-fire magnetic field, fire-water magnetic field, water-wood magnetic field, and wood-metal magnetic field? Or perhaps earth and wood magnetic field? There should be 2 attributes that mutually reinforce and restrain each other. But 2 unrelated attributes. I'm afraid there isn't, right? However, that might not be the case. The world is so big that nothing is too strange. Just because you don't know doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Even if you see it, it might not necessarily be true. Ha ha ha, why am I thinking so much? Right now, I'm only an aura refining cultivator. Wait until I'm a nascent soul cultivator, then I'll think about this again. Xiaohua let out a long howl. His figure entered a crack in the netherworld wind, disappearing without a trace. His howl was indeed very soft. It simply didn't cause any disturbance. Not to mention the white tiger that was nearby, there was no need to mention the earth magnetic pole that was even further away. After returning to the place where he'd collected the puppet, Xiaohua didn't rush forward. Instead, he took some medicinal pills and sat cross-legged to recover most of his magic power. Only then did he slowly return to the surface with a frosty expression on his face. In front of the hurricane passage, Emoching Yuan's face also didn't have any expression. It was as if he'd long known the outcome, or perhaps he'd only understood the cruelty of reality after his extreme desire. He only silently looked at the hurricane passage that was slowly shrinking. then turned around to look at the ground where he'd come out from. Up until now, he hadn't given himself the slightest reason to believe that a peak stage or a refining cultivator would be able to come out from there again. Even if this cultivator could control magic treasures, wasn't afraid of the metal earth magnetic field, and had the ability to contend against his puppet. Alas, Emo Qingyuan sighed. It was as if it was because of Xiaohua's fate, his own incompetence, or that puppet of his that had great use. He turned around and waved his hand. The 3 human-shaped battle puppets, as well as a dozen odd puppets that had come out from the earth, were all put into his storage pouch. Immediately after, from the edge of the passage, a 6th light blue flying sword appeared from an extremely hidden place. Emo Qingyuan pointed his hand and put it away as well. However, just as his figure floated to the front of the passage, a cold voice said, "Senior Emo, could it be that you don't want the earth crystal Yao milk anymore?" Ah! This voice was like a bolt from the blue, instantly shocking Emo Qingyuan. He turned around in disbelief, even forgetting to release his divine sense. His surprised and disbelieving gaze fell on Xiaohua's ice-cold face. You really got the earth crystal Yao milk?" Emo Qingyuan's voice was somewhat trembling and extremely low. He didn't sound like a foundation establishment cultivator at all, but more like a mortal who was suppressing his emotions. Xiaohua looked at the passage in front of Emo Qingyuan, which had already shrunk by 20%, and said coldly, "Now doesn't seem to be the time to talk about this." That's right. Emo Qingyuan immediately came to his senses and said repeatedly, "The hurricane passage here is already about to collapse. I'm afraid it will take several years for it to form again." And as he spoke, Emo Qingyuan stretched out his hand and said with a smile, "Your magic power must be exhausted. Let this old man take you on a journey." Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "No need. This junior still has energy left. Senior, if you want to get what you want, then lead the way." Okay. Emo Qingyuan couldn't argue with Xiaohua at this time, and the awkwardness on his face disappeared in a flash. Then, without saying a word, he floated up again and rushed toward the hurricane tunnel. Chapter 1778. Although Xiaohua had the dream executioner in his mouth, whenever he saw anything strange about Emo Qingyuan, he would immediately summon his flying sword without hesitation. However, even though it was unexpected, it was also within his expectations. Emo Qingyuan only hurriedly flew out of the passage. During this time, he didn't even look back or release his divine sense. And behind Xiaohua, the hurricane gradually shrank, as if it was squeezing Xiaohua, expelling Xiaohua from the relatively quiet center of the tunnel. After Xiaohua escaped from the passage and entered the stone wall, he heard a loud tearing sound behind him. The entire passage disappeared, and the netherworld wind howled and wreaked havoc. Lucky, Xiaohua's back was covered in a layer of cold sweat. He secretly rejoiced that he didn't get greedy for more Zhong Yao milk. The stone wall disappeared in a flash. Emo Qingyuan was already standing not far from the stone wall with a smile on his face, looking at Xiaohua with eager eyes. "Congratulations, fellow Taoist Xiao, congratulations." Emo Qingyuan cupped his hands and said, "I didn't expect fellow Taoist Xiao to be so lucky. You actually, really got the earth crystal Yao milk." Xiaohua sneered and said, "Fellow Taoist Emo, when did I say I got the earth crystal Yao milk?" "What? You didn't get it?" Emo Qingyuan's face turned cold. What size cultivation level? How could I use a foundation establishment talisman?" Xiaohua's eyes narrowed, and he said coldly, "Fellow Taoist Emo, you really overestimate I's cultivation level." Emo Qingyuan was stunned. Then he suddenly understood, and then became very frightened. He said, "Oh, look at this old man's brain, how could I forget about this? Atonement. But before he could say anything, Emo Qingyuan's face showed surprise again. He said, "So fellow Taoist Xiao, still used a talisman? That earth crystal Yao milk." Seeing the rich expression on Emo Qingyuan's face, Xiaohua was so angry that his teeth itched. He wanted to punch this guy in the face and smash his face into a piece of persimmon. Unfortunately, the other party was a senior in the middle stage of foundation establishment. If it weren't for the fact that he had some misgivings towards him, He would have killed him a long time ago. He could only feign civility and do his best to obtain the greatest benefits. Senior Mo, this doesn't seem to be a good place to talk, right? Xiaohua still didn't speak the truth. He only looked around and said leisurely. It's fine now. Mo Qingyuan smiled and said, the space here is stable. There are at least 6 hours left. It's enough for us to get out. 6 hours. Xiaohua sneered in his heart, but his mouth said, oh, that's good. Fellow Taoist Xiao, did you get the earth crystal Yao milk or not? Mo Qingyuan asked. Since you're already here. You've fulfilled your promise, right? Xiaohua glanced at Mo Qingyuan, grinned and said, I said that I would give you 30% of the Zhong Yao milk. But I didn't say where or when, did I? A gloomy expression flashed across Mo Qingyuan's face, and then he sneered. Fellow Taoist Xiao, could it be that you think I can't do anything to you? If you provoke me, the methods of a foundation establishment cultivator. Senior Mo, you seem to be thinking too much. Xiaohua rolled his eyes and said with a smile. I think it's better to make a deal after we get to the netherworld. After all, I don't have any confidence in this space crack. Mo Qingyuan stared into Xiaohua's eyes, as if he wanted to know if he was telling the truth. After a long while he said, all right, since that's the case, I'll be magnanimous this time. Let's talk after we get out of this space crack. Follow me. Mo Qingyuan didn't even turn his head. His body floated up again, crossed the gully, and flew in a certain direction. Senior, don't be anxious. My flying talisman isn't very useful. Xiaohua shouted as he slowly climbed out of the gully, and followed behind Mo Qingyuan. He was extremely vigilant. Mo Qingyuan was helpless, but he couldn't stop. He could only fly in front slowly. In the time it took to eat a meal, Mo Qingyuan brought Xiaohua to the place where Sun Shu had placed the talisman. Xiaohua was shocked to see Mo Qingyuan easily find the location of the space crack in the yellow space. He couldn't figure out how Mo Qingyuan had done it. Mo Qingyuan looked at the location of the space crack and sneered. There's actually a talisman. Your Imperial Lightning sect seems to have put in a lot of effort. Then he looked to the left and said, do you have other senior brothers coming with you? What do you think, Senior Mo? Xiaohua said with a smile. They're all Qi refinement disciples. What's the difference? Mo Qingyuan sneered. Then he clapped his hands and the wooden dragon chopper flew out of his storage bag. Mo Qingyuan rubbed his hands, and the wooden dragon chopper turned into a small dragon. The dragon's tail cut through the air, and with a clang, a bright light flashed in the air. Then the light grew bigger and bigger. In the time it took to drink a cup of tea, it turned into a space crack that was 3 meters long and 5 meters wide. Through the crack, they could see the familiar netherworld outside. Countless wind pillars were near and far in their field of vision. Let's go. Mo Qingyuan jumped out and stood in the air above netherworld. Xiaohua hesitated for a moment. When he saw that Sun Shu and the others weren't behind him, he could only jump out. Fortunately, the space crack didn't heal as quickly as last time. Xiaohua, can we make the deal now? Mo Qingyuan's expression wasn't as good as it was in the space. Of course. Xiaohua nodded, but then he said, however, the conditions have to be changed. What? Mo Qingyuan was stunned. You've already made a heart oath. How can you change it? As long as Senior changes the conditions, it won't be considered a violation of the heart oath. Xiaohua said with a smile. What if I don't agree? Mo Qingyuan narrowed his eyes and said. Xiaohua had a card up his sleeve as he said. Junior thinks that Senior will definitely agree. After all, Senior's carelessness almost cost Junior my life. Oh, I see. Mo Qingyuan naturally knew what Xiaohua was talking about. He nodded slightly. Tell me, let me hear it first. Zhong Yao milk, Junior can only give Senior 1 drop. Xiaohua had already calculated and said quickly. Impossible. Mo Qingyuan flatly refused, but then he said with a trembling voice. Could it be? You really got the earth crystal Yao milk? Until now, Mo Qingyuan still couldn't believe it. That's right, Junior did get the earth crystal Yao milk. Xiaohua nodded. Moreover, I'm going to give this drop of earth crystal Yao milk to Senior. Oh, if that's the case, I understand. Mo Qingyuan's face showed that he understood, but the joy didn't disappear. He said hastily, "You went in, so I can't let you get too little. This old man agrees to your conditions." Chapter 1779. Great. Xiaohua didn't explain and said with a smile, "Junior knows that Senior is a kind person who takes pity on me." Ha ha ha. Mo Qingyuan laughed and said, "Give it to me." "Senior, please give me the puppet refining technique," Xiaohua said. Mo Qingyuan clapped his hand and took out a jade slip. With a wave of his hand, it flew in front of Xiaohua. Xiaohua cautiously scanned it with his divine sense. When he felt that there were no problems, he took it with his hand. Then he immersed his divine sense into it and roughly looked through it. He was a little disappointed and said in a low voice, "Senior Mo, this puppet refining technique, why is it only the first half?" Didn't I say? I can only give you the most basic refining technique. The other battle and strange puppet refining techniques are in the second half. I didn't promise to give it to you," Mo Qingyuan said with a smile. Xiaohua's mouth was filled with bitterness. "How is it? My puppet refining technique is real, right? It's authentic." "Yes, it is. It's real." Xiaohua smiled bitterly. "Then give me my puppets, Earth Crystal Yao Milk, and Zhong Yao Milk," said Mo Qingyuan in an extremely amiable tone. "I don't want to be known as a bully." "Yes, Senior, take it. This is Zhong Yao Milk." Xiaohua waved his hand, and a drop of brown Zhong Yao milk flew out. "Why didn't you put it in a jade bottle?" Joy flashed across Mo Qingyuan's face and he reprimanded. After he put away the Zhong Yao milk, Xiaohua took out the black earth crystal Yao milk. Unexpectedly, the moment the earth crystal Yao milk appeared in the air, it immediately expanded rapidly. Moreover, it was incomparably heavy and fell towards the ground. "Ignorant," Mo Qingyuan scolded. "Can you take out a treasure of heaven and earth without using a talisman?" As he spoke, he didn't have time to say anything else. He hurriedly formed hand seals, and several rays of light hit the earth crystal Yao milk, barely stopping it from expanding. However, at this time, the earth crystal Yao milk was already the size of a fist. After the green light on Mo Qingyuan's body flashed a few times, he put the earth crystal Yao milk into his storage bag. Xiaohua's face was filled with embarrassment as he said in a low voice, "Junior, didn't know that the earth crystal Yao milk had such a mutation." Mo Qingyuan was in an extremely good mood, and he waved his hand and said, "You're naturally unaware. It's my fault for not warning you earlier. Where are my puppets?" "Senior, please wait a moment." Xiaohua clapped his hand. What he took out wasn't a puppet, but the cloud-suppressing seal. The moment the cloud-suppressing seal appeared, it let out a thunderous roar and flew above Xiaohua's head. It scattered a yellow light that covered Xiaohua. You're quite cautious." Mo Qingyuan's face was calm. "I've already made a heart oath. What are you afraid of? Junior doesn't dare." Xiaohua's face was filled with panic, but he didn't care. He even felt a faint excitement in his heart, hoping that Mo Qingyuan would go back on his word. When Xiaohua took out the puppet from his storage bag, he threw it out of the cloud-suppressing seal's light barrier. The puppet immediately somersaulted in the air and stood upright in midair, sandwiching Xiaohua between it and Mo Qingyuan. "What? Xiaohua, you're only taking my puppet?" Mo Qingyuan frowned as he spoke. Senior Mo, I'm only exchanging this puppet with you. The other puppet seems to be surnamed Xiao as well. Senior, you still want something else to exchange for it?" Xiaohua smiled as he spoke. "What do you want?" Mo Qingyuan's tone was cold. "Of course I want the refinement method for the other half of the puppet." Xiaohua spoke coldly as well. "Ha ha." Mo Qingyuan clapped his hand, and the wooden dragon chopper flew out again. "Since you're unable to keep your heart oath, then I naturally don't have to keep my heart oath." "Xiaohua, you however," Mo Qingyuan hadn't finished speaking when his expression suddenly changed drastically. He actually seemed to be overjoyed as he exclaimed, "The Nether Lotus? How could such a thing exist?" Then he ignored Xiaohua's astonishment and clapped his hand. He took out the centipede-like puppet and tossed it in front of Xiaohua. He hurriedly said, Forget it, I won't lower myself to your level. That combat puppet is one of the 4 phases formation. I can't give it to you, so I'll exchange it with this puppet. After that, he glanced at the puppets behind Xiaohua and said, if you don't agree, then this old man will immediately fall out with you. This old man doesn't believe that this old man and a dozen puppets can't kill him. Xiaohua muttered to himself for a moment before he waved his hand. He put away the centipede-like puppet and took out the combat puppet. He tossed it out of the light of the cloud-suppressing seal as well. At least you know what's good for you. Emoching Yuan sneered and waved his hand. The 2 puppets floated up with him and flew out of the open space. After he flew a few meters away, he turned around and said, Xiaohua, I've enjoyed working with you. If you have the chance in the future, come to the north of the desert. I'll consider giving you the second half of the art of puppetry. Xiaohua raised his brows and said, thank you for your kindness, senior. I still want to live for a few more years. Hee, you can live for a few more years. Mo Qingyuan's tone was very strange, but this spatial rift is supposed to open up an hour later. Now that I've opened it up with the wooden dragon chopper, I'm afraid it won't close on time. Those fellow disciples of yours may not be able to live for much longer. Ha 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 ha. Old geezer. Xiaohua was exasperated as he swept the spatial rift with his divine perception. Sure enough, the spatial rift actually showed signs of collapsing and wasn't healing naturally. I was wondering why the spatial rift would stop there the moment it was opened. So it was forcefully torn apart. Xiaohua came to a realization. Without caring about anything else, he jumped in again and opened his Dharma eyes. He saw the talisman left behind by Kuan Fian near the spatial rift. Then Xiaohua silently chanted a spell and activated his Dharma Qi. He hit the talisman one by one. When the talisman turned into a ball of light, Xiaohua hurriedly hit it on the spatial rift, temporarily suppressing the collapse of the spatial rift. Senior Sister Sun, Senior Sister Kuan, Senior Sister Kuan, Senior Brother Qian, Senior Brother Qian, quickly come back. Whether you have Zhongyao milk or not, hurry back. I have a lot here, enough for the 3 of you to use. Xiaohua muttered as if he was casting a spell. Right, send 1,000-mile sound-transmitting talisman. Xiaohua suddenly quivered. He clapped his hands and 3 sound-transmitting talismans appeared in his hands. He activated his Dharma Qi and 3 rays of light flew out. Who knew that although the 3 rays of light went in different directions, they all flew lower and lower. In less than 10 feet, they were suppressed by the heavy earth spiritual Qi and couldn't fly any further, falling to the ground. What should I do? Xiaohua had the heart, but he was powerless. In a moment of desperation, Xiaohua thought of the green seal script. Every word contained boundless Dharma Qi. If only I could use the green seal script. If I moved my mouth, the senior sisters would be able to hear it. But this thought only flashed through his mind. Xiaohua could only look at the spatial rift in vain, hoping that Sun Shu and the other 2 would hurry back. Speaking of the netherworld, the location where the netherworld orchid was found by the disciples of the 3 sects of the Shenghua sect was different from before. At this moment, the several hundred feet tall wind pillar had already become much smaller. It was like a large net that had been spread out from the ground and was slowly being pulled back into the ground. Even with the naked eye, one could see the top of the wind pillar from a distance. Of course, the wind pillar's rotation speed was still the same as before. The huge air current was still wreaking havoc around the wind pillar. Within the wind pillar, the faint blue light was even more dazzling, but its shape was still blurry. It faintly resembled an orchid. At the bottom of the several hundred feet tall wind pillar was a huge depression. It should be a huge wind tunnel that led underground. At this moment, there were no longer a few people around the wind tunnel, but a total of 200 people. That's right, they were the 100+ disciples of the Shenghua sect, Xuanyan school, and Qiqiao sect that were guarding the entrance to the netherworld. They were also the 100+ disciples from the other sects that they wanted to block. It was clear that the Shenghua sect and the other sects' plan to lead these disciples down the wrong path had failed. Which of these disciples that could cultivate to the 12th layer of Qi condensation weren't meticulous? Which one of them wasn't scheming? A simple and unplanned plan couldn't deceive them. Moreover, The change in the wind pillar could be seen from several dozen kilometers away. Who wouldn't come over to take a look? Kill. The female cultivator among the first few disciples to arrive coldly said. An older disciple of the Qiqiao sect glanced over and slowly nodded. Our 3 sect's disciples have already formed a formation, but the wind pillar is several hundred feet wide. It's impossible to block it all. If we attack, we won't have any advantage. But if we don't attack now, what will happen to the Netherworld Orchid after the wind pillar returns to the wind tunnel? What guarantee do we have? The female cultivator said with dissatisfaction. If your Qiqiao sect doesn't attack, I will give the order. I forget it. Foundation establishment is an opportunity. Perhaps it will be the Netherworld Orchid, or perhaps it will be this life and death battle. The cultivator sighed and turned to look at another cultivator. They exchanged glances and clapped their hands, taking out an intricate yellow talisman. With a bit of magic power, it immediately transformed into the shape of a small bird. With a few chirps, it flapped its wings and flew into the air. Next, the small bird suddenly exploded in the wind. The yellow light condensed into the word Qiao. The Qiqiao sect disciple shouted. Pass down the Qiqiao sect's disciple order. Disciples attack. Following that, a green goose-shaped talisman and a firework-shaped messaging talisman both flew into the air. The 2 voices sounded at almost the same time. Shanghua sect's disciples attack. Xuanyan school's disciples attack. Roar. After receiving the orders from their senior martial brother, the 3 sect's disciples, who had already rested, activated their magic power and threw out their yellow talismans. They attacked the disciples scattered around the wind pillar. Just as the Qiqiao sect's disciples expected, they had already suffered a great loss at the entrance of the Netherworld Orchid. How could they repeat the same mistake? When they got close to the wind pillar, they had already spread out. Now that they saw the 3 sect's disciples attacking, they even used their flying talismans to escape. They were using a wandering tactic. Chapter 1780. Chase. The 3 sect disciples were helpless. Seeing that their probing was ineffective, they immediately gave the order. Kill. Receiving the order, the 3 sect disciples could only disperse their formation and chase after the enemy. However, they were well-trained and formed groups of 2s and 3s to attack. For a time, the entire wind pillar was surrounded by flashes of brilliance and continuous sounds. From time to time, miserable screams could be heard from different places. Senior martial brother Can, how should we deal with this? Seeing the 3 sect disciples attacking, Kinpeng asked in a low voice. Let's wait and see. Can Shiming glared at Kinpeng, then glanced at the pale Zhen Yuhui and said in a low voice. Can't you see that junior martial brother Zhen's injuries haven't healed? We can't fight recklessly with the Shanghua sect disciples. Yes. Kinpeng replied with a lowered brow, but the yellow talisman in his hand was already prepared. The 4 disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect were also unlucky. Seeing Xiaohua's group rushing into the dark mystery, they were happy in their hearts. They commanded the disciples of the other sects to take advantage of the situation and tear apart the formation set up by the disciples of the 3 sections. Then, they happily rushed into the dark mystery. However, the pride in their hearts didn't last long. The glory of being praised by the other sect disciples only lasted for a short while before they were targeted by the Xuanyan school disciples. Of course, the Imperial Thunder sect disciples were really awesome. They tore apart the formation of the other 3 sects and destroyed their plan to monopolize the Nether Orchid. This was a shortcut to the Foundation establishment realm, a great opportunity. How could they not bear a grudge? Xiaohua ran away, but what about the other Imperial Thunder sect disciples? Could they run away? At this time, seeing the 10 Xuanyan school disciples chasing after the Imperial Thunder sect disciples, the other sect's disciples all ran away in fear. How could they help Qin Shiming and the others? In the end, after several fights, Zhen Yuhui was seriously injured and Zhenjian City was sacrificed. If it wasn't for the strange phenomenon in the wind pillar that Qin Shiming discovered in time and desperately ran here, the 3 Imperial Thunder sect disciples probably wouldn't have even seen the shadow of the Nether Orchid before they died in the hands of the Xuanyan school disciples. Of course, when Qin Shiming reached the side of the wind pillar, The Xuanyan cult disciples had no choice but to stop and focus their attention on the nether orchid. Only then did Qin Shiming heave a sigh of relief, and let Zhen Yuhui quickly consume some medicinal pellets to recuperate. Xiaohua, Xiaohua, you're really hateful. Not only did you not listen to I's command, but you actually dared to charge into the formation without my permission. You clearly have the strength to break the formation, but you didn't tell I. You can't follow the big picture. This kind of loose cultivator's consciousness is really hateful. When I return to the Imperial Thunder sect, I will definitely report to my sect master and ask him to punish you. Hateful, truly hateful. Qin Shiming cursed Xiaohua 3 or 4 times in his heart. Clearly, he hated Xiaohua to the extreme. He had long forgotten about Xiaohua's contribution in breaking the formation and allowing them to enter the netherworld. Meanwhile, Qin Shiming's gaze had been wandering around the wind pillar, trying to find traces of Xiaohua, Sun Shu, and the others. Senior brother can stop looking. Qin Peng sneered. I'm afraid that Xiaohua has already died. Think about it, if Xuanyan School's disciples are chasing us, what are Shanghua sect and Qiqiao sect's disciples doing? They're definitely chasing after Xiaohua. We're already in this state, can they still live? Besides, we've already seen the strange phenomenon around the wind pillar. They still haven't come in. Before Qin Peng could finish his words, a sharp sound appeared near Qin Peng's left amidst the clamor and the whistling of the wind. Damn it, they're finally here. Qin Shiming smiled bitterly. Seeing the Qiqiao sect's disciple flying over to attack, he slapped his hand and threw out a seal of ice talisman. A ball of light blue light flew into the air and met the incoming icicles. Take junior brother Zhen to the wind pillar, Qin Shiming ordered. His body flew up, and as he placed a Vajra talisman on himself, he raised his voice. Yes, this disciple understands. Qin Peng didn't dare to be negligent. He placed his hand on Zhen Yuhui's shoulder and threw out a flight talisman, ready to take him away. Haha, Imperial Thunder sect's disciple, where do you think you're going? Another voice rang out from the gust of wind. Before the voice even faded away, a crimson-red brilliance lit up in the air not far from Qin Peng. A 7 Skills sect disciple held a foot-long red palm leaf fan and waved it towards Qin Peng. The crimson-red brilliance came from the palm leaf fan. Ah? Magic treasure? Young leaf fan. Seeing the palm leaf fan surrounded by tiny flames, Qin Peng cried out involuntarily. The might of the magic treasure couldn't be concealed even by the wind. Qin Peng couldn't care less about taking Zhen Yuhui with him. He withdrew his hand and took out a 3-inch long black stick from his storage pouch. It was his favorite magic treasure, the Thunder Roll. The yang leaf fan was slowly fanned in the 7 Skills sect's disciple's hand. The surrounding heaven and earthling qi was absorbed by the yang leaf fan. First, a crimson flame appeared, then countless flames gathered together to form a fire dragon. The fire dragon was driven by the yang leaf fan and flew towards Qin Peng. The fire dragon absorbed the heaven and earthling qi and grew even bigger. When it got close to Qin Peng, it was already 3 feet long. Qin Peng clenched his teeth and sent all the magic power in his body into the thunder roll. Countless tiny lightning bolts surged out and formed a lightning net in front of Qin Peng in the blink of an eye. Go! Qin Peng waved the thunder roll weakly. The lightning net let out a rumbling sound and flew towards the fire dragon. In the blink of an eye, the lightning net sank into the fire dragon. Crackle! A series of loud crackling noises rang out. The lightning on the lightning net flickered several times. Before it disappeared, the fire dragon's power was greatly reduced. However, the yang leaf fan was, after all, a magical treasure. 30% of the fire dragons were annihilated by the lightning roll. Even more fire dragons were able to pass through the lightning net with a snap of the fingers and drown Qin Peng and Zhen Yuhui with lightning speed. Qin Peng and Zhen Yuhui already had defensive yellow talismans around their bodies to resist Ming Shi's wind. But at this time, under the scorching heat of the fire dragon, the yellow talismans simply couldn't resist for even a moment, and were annihilated in an instant. Senior apprentice brother can save me. Qin Peng shouted and continuously placed defensive yellow talismans on his body. As for Zhen Yuhui, he was even more miserable. He only felt a burning pain all over his body. He only had time to scream before his body began to rapidly melt. He turned into a pile of ash and was blown away by Mingxi's wind. Qin Peng's resistance was futile. How could a few yellow talismans resist a magic treasure? After a few breaths of time, he followed in Zhen Yuhui's footsteps. Imperial Thunder Sect Disciple. You're only a thing. The Seven Skills Sect Disciple proudly smiled. Without stopping, he slapped his hand and took out a pill. Just as he was about to put it into his mouth, a chuckle sounded from the side. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Leave this young leaf fan to I. As he spoke, a cultivator wearing a black Taoist robe suddenly broke free from his battle with another Shanghua sect disciple. He waved his hand and a fist-sized blue bead flew out. A layer of blue light rippled out from the bead and rushed towards the Seven Possibilities sect disciple like a tide. Chapter 1781. Aqua Pearl. You are. Seeing the pearl fly into the air, how could the Seven Skills sect disciple not know that this aqua pearl was the same magic treasure that had fought against him several times at the entrance of the Dark Land? However, he had just used the Yang Leaf Fan and had used up all his magic power. How could he fight against the aqua pearl? With a pale face, he quickly took out a yellow talisman and used his magic power to activate it. Unfortunately, his resistance was not as good as Qin Peng's. The aqua blue light easily broke through his defensive yellow talisman and rushed into his body. His body immediately crumbled inch by inch, turning into a pile of white bones that fell from the sky. Ha ha ha. The disciple who used the water blue pearl laughed out loud. His figure flew up, and with a wave of his hand he grabbed the Yang Leaf Fan. Then he no longer paid any attention to Zwanir and flew off in another direction. Such cruel scenes continued to appear around the Pillar of Wind. Lives were reaped one after another. The color of blood was reflected in the air and splashed all over the Dark Land. In the air above the Pillar of Wind, the little bird-like puppet was still spinning around the Pillar of Wind. Its lifeless eyes emotionlessly watched everything that was happening below. Although no one noticed the puppet, not far away from the Pillar of Wind, in the middle of the howling wind, there seemed to be no one there. A low voice rang out. Why is there a flying puppet here? Then, as if talking to himself, it should be the Seven Skills sect's doing. They use it to observe the surroundings? Hee, this thing can be used? This old man has been here for a long time. How come I wasn't discovered? Sigh, although this Pillar of Wind has changed, this old man came all the way here only to see a dark orchid. This old man has no use for this thing. If I take it back, it will only benefit my junior brothers. Forget it, this old man should go find Xiaohua and quickly kill him. Something's wrong. The voice seemed to be going far away, but after a short pause, it cried out again. The Pillar of Wind shrank by 40% and the hurricane gradually became transparent. The turbid air gradually became clear, and the faint blue color at the bottom of the Pillar of Wind became clear. How was it a thin orchid? It was clearly a budding lotus. Netherworld lotus? The voice cried out in alarm. Ripples appeared in the air, and a human figure appeared. It was Zhentong who had used the invisibility talisman. Although the nether orchid is a spiritual herb that aura-refining cultivators yearn for even in their dreams, isn't this nether lotus also a supreme shortcut for us Foundation Establishment cultivators to advance to the Gold Core realm? Zhendong's face lit up with joy, but he still didn't believe it. But I've never heard of a nether lotus appearing in the dark world. This thing is said to be at the bottom of the profound Een Mirage, the place closest to the netherworld. Only one flower would appear occasionally. Forget it. I don't care if it's a netherworld lotus or not. I know how to pick it and I'll know how to use it in the future. Zhenting clenched his teeth. Everyone here is just an aura-refining disciple. I'll kill them all. Who would know that it was this old man who obtained the treasure? Ha ha ha, Xiaohua. You really are a blessed person. Although I didn't go with you to find Zhongyao milk, I found the nether orchid here. This thing is much more precious than Zhongyao milk. As he spoke, the column of wind shrank rapidly, as if the blooming nether orchid had absorbed all the wind of the netherworld. Seeing this, Zhentong didn't dare to delay any longer. He slapped his forehead and released a powerful pressure. Then he brushed his storage bag, and a disc-like magic treasure appeared in his hand. It was none other than his favorite magic treasure, Bright Thunder. Under the influence of Zhentong's magic power, Bright Thunder emitted a faint electric light, and a blue brilliance emitted from the edge of the Bright Thunder. Go! Without hesitation, Zhentong pointed his finger. Bright Thunder flashed with a few thunderous sounds and rushed into the crowd of aura-refining disciples who were fighting fiercely. The aura-refining cultivators were fighting fiercely, so naturally, they didn't notice Zhentong's appearance. When Zhentong released the pressure of a middle foundation establishment cultivator, everyone was shocked to find that under the pressure of a foundation establishment cultivator, except for some cultivators who were holding magic treasures in their hands, everyone else was paralyzed on the ground. Martial Uncle Zhen? Qian Shiming was about to be killed by a few Xuanyan school disciples, but at the most critical moment, an irresistible pressure of a foundation establishment cultivator appeared. Moreover, Qian Shiming was facing Zhentong. When he saw Zhentong's appearance and the unique bright thunder of the Imperial Thunder sect, he couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Moreover, when he saw Bright Thunder emitting thunderbolts and using sharp blades to kill the aura-refining cultivators who were paralyzed on the ground, and even used the power of Bright Thunder to kill the aura-refining cultivators who were slightly further away in the vortex of the column of wind, Qian Shiming was overjoyed. However, what Qian Shiming didn't expect was that Bright Thunder was also flying straight towards him. What made Qian Shiming's eyes almost pop out of their sockets was that Bright Thunder didn't show any signs of recognizing him. Oh no, Martial Uncle Zhen probably didn't see me. Qian Shiming hurriedly urged his transcendence energy to resist Zhentong's pressure. At the same time, he stretched out his hand and wanted to take out the Imperial Thunder sect's unique messaging talisman. Boom boom boom, a burst of thunderclaps sounded in Qian Shiming's ears. A bright blue light flashed in Qian Shiming's eyes. That bright thunder's lightning struck Qian Shiming's body, and the power of the transcendent artifact sent his body flying towards the vortex of the column of wind. In the air, Qian Shiming had just taken out a transmission talisman from the Imperial Thunder sect that had yet to be activated by magic power. Martial Uncle Zhen. This junior Qian Shiming's lips trembled slightly, and he couldn't say a single word. His eyes were filled with despair and unwillingness, and they swept over Zhentong's gaze towards him. Unfortunately, Zhentong's eyes were indifferent, as if he didn't see Qian Shiming at all. How could a aura-refining cultivator be a match for a foundation establishment cultivator? Especially when it was a transcendent artifact of a foundation establishment cultivator. In just a short moment, there weren't many left. Now it was one disaster after another, and there weren't many left. Zhentong snorted coldly when he saw the remaining disciples trembling in fear as they raised their transcendent artifacts in the air. He rubbed his hands, and a bolt of lightning as thick as a thumb shot out from the Bright Thunder. With a loud bang, the bird-shaped puppet didn't have any time to react. It immediately scattered and was swept into the column of wind, disappearing into the vortex in an instant. Kill. Zhentong didn't hesitate at all. The Bright Thunder continued to spin and flew towards the nearest leaf-shaped transcendent artifact. Fellow Taoist, you're mighty. Before the Bright Thunder hit the leaf-shaped transcendent artifact, a cold voice came from the other side of the column of wind. Who is it? Zhentong was startled. He pointed at the Bright Thunder, and it immediately stopped in midair. He scanned with his divine sense. The newcomer was Mo Qingyuan. Oh my, a foundation establishment cultivator. Zhentong was shocked when he saw Mo Qingyuan's cultivation. He glanced at the nether lotus that was gradually revealing itself, and a bad feeling arose in his heart. Fellow Taoist, please, Zhentong said with a smile. May I know which sect you are from? Which sect? Mo Qingyuan gradually flew to the other side of the column of wind. He scanned the corpses on the ground and in the vortex with his divine sense and sneered. You've killed so many disciples. One of them must be from I's sect, right? Hee, Zhentong pointed at I, and the Bright Thunder shone brightly. He sneered and said, Fellow Taoist, it seems that you're determined to be my enemy? Nonsense, this nether lotus was originally chosen by I. You want to take it away from I? Do you think I'll still pretend to be polite to you? Mo Qingyuan was obviously very angry. He didn't want to waste time talking to Zhentong. He clapped his hands, and the wooden dragon villa flew up into the air with a green light. A transcendent artifact. Zhentong smiled bitterly and thought to himself, why are there so many transcendent artifacts today? I's transcendent artifact was given to me by my sect. How come this cultivator also has a transcendent artifact? Seeing the wooden dragon villa, Zhentong's desire to bully the weak weakened a little. He quickly said, fellow Taoist, you're wrong. I've been here for a long time, but I didn't see you. How can you say I stole your nether lotus? Mo Qingyuan sneered like Zhentong just now. He pointed at the corpse of the puppet in the vortex and said, I's puppet has always been here. I know the situation here like the back of my hand. Fellow Taoist, you killed I's divine sense as soon as you arrived. How can I let you go? Puppet? Divine sense? Zhentong obviously didn't know anything about puppetry. However, he sneered and said, this is just a puppet of the Seven Skills sect. If you insist that it's yours, I don't care. This nether lotus is mine anyway. Since no other cultivators are here, I'll kill you first. Go. As he spoke, Haolei circled and countless lightning threads shot toward Mo Qingyuan. The Imperial Thunder Sect? Mo Qingyuan was stunned. When he thought of Xiaohua's mysteriousness, he immediately became vigilant. He didn't dare to be careless. The wooden dragon villa shook its head and swung its tail toward Haolei. As the wooden dragon chopper appeared, Mo Qingyuan casually waved his hand. A speck of green quietly entered the whistling wind and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Now that you know I's a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect, you should quickly retreat. Zhenming grinned hideously and waved his hands. More lightning and fire appeared in his hands, whistling as they pounced on Mo Qingyuan. I'm afraid I won't be able to retreat with this little divine sense. Mo Qingyuan flicked his Taoist robe, and a faint green light appeared in front of him. Many lightning bolts hit the green light, causing it to sparkle. In the air, the wooden dragon villa's tail swung and chopped down on Haolei like a guillotine. The lightning bolts shot out by Haolei hit the tail of the wooden dragon villa. After several loud cracking sounds, the wooden dragon villa's tail was bounced back, and Haolei's brilliance also dimmed. Mo Qingyuan stole a glance at the wind pillar that was about to reach the bottom. He narrowed his eyes and sent out his magic power at a moderate pace. Chapter 1782. Mo Qingyuan looked at the bottom of the wind pillar. How could Jinxing not look? The two of them had been fighting for the time it took for an incense stick to burn. Before they could determine the winner, the wind pillar had already fallen to about 10 feet. The blue nether lotus was already visible in the wind pillar. Moreover, the beautiful lotus was trembling slightly in the strong wind, just like the eyelashes of a lover. At this moment, the wind pillar that had fallen to about 10 feet suddenly shrank violently, exposing the nether lotus outside of the wind pillar. The shrinkage was so powerful that it shook the entire ground and stirred the air around the wind tunnel. Even Mo Qingyuan and Zhenxing, who were in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm, couldn't stand steadily in the air. Go. At this moment, the wooden dragon chopper was flying toward bright lightning. Mo Qingyuan's body tilted, and he unexpectedly pointed his finger. The wooden dragon chopper turned in the air and rushed toward the wind pillar, cutting toward the nether lotus. It's not that simple. Obviously, Zhendong had the same thought. When he saw Mo Qingyuan take the initiative, he couldn't help but feel embarrassed and angry. He rubbed his hands together, and luminous thunder whizzed toward the wooden dragon chopper, knocking it out of the whirlpool. Fellow Taoist, you should stay. Mo Qingyuan waved his hand and cast a spell. Several thin blue Xiaohua petals appeared around Zhenxing and blocked his path. Zhenxing laughed loudly. After fighting for so long, you still don't know? Isn't I's lightning type spell the nemesis of your wood type spells? As he spoke, he spread out his hands. A few lightning threads that flickered with a fiery glow shot out and pierced into the few flower petals. Pa pa pa. A series of soft pa 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 sounds were heard. The green flower petals were all damaged. Zhenming's body extended and flew towards the wind pillar. His target was the nether lotus. Don't go. Mo Qingyuan seemed to be anxious, and he hurriedly gave chase. However, his speed was clearly slower than Zhen Ho's. When Junho entered the pillar of wind, the suction force there had weakened greatly, and the top of the pillar of wind was only a few feet away from the nether lotus. Go! Emoching Yuan was anxious. He flung his sleeves, and 4 human-shaped puppets and several odd-shaped puppets flew out of his storage pouch and surrounded Jin Meng. Zhendong wasn't nervous at all. He looked at the puppets and sneered. I have been waiting for you to take out your puppets. I didn't expect you to be so patient. However, you want to obtain the nether lotus with just these puppets? How naive. Emoching Yuan's face was gloomy, but he didn't say anything. He waved his hand, and the 4 puppets attacked Jin Ming. The strange puppets also attacked from above and below. Emoching Yuan didn't stay idle either. He threw out his talismans and other items. It seemed like he was out of tricks. As for Xiaohua, he was extremely anxious outside the spatial crack. He kept staring at the rich earthen yellow spiritual energy inside. Fortunately, even though Emoching Yuan had opened the spatial rift a step earlier, he hadn't really succeeded in his plan. Furthermore, Xiaohua had also wasted a lot of time on the metal earth magnetic field. The spatial rift only collapsed after Sun Shu and the other 2 hurried over with disappointed expressions. The most dangerous one was still Qian Diheng. This guy kept looking back with every step, hoping to step on dog shit at the last moment. You better come out quickly. Xiaohua couldn't bear it anymore. He jumped into the spatial crack, grabbed Qian Diheng's arm, and quickly pulled him out. The 2 just came out, and in the blink of an eye, the spatial crack closed with a rumbling sound. The momentum was much greater than the last time. Seeing the spiritual talisman turn into specks of light and disappear, Sun Shu was shocked. He thought of Xiaohua's abnormality and exclaimed, Junior brother Xiao, what's going on? My spiritual talisman. Why is it so fragile? Xiaohua sighed. He didn't know where to start. He thought for a while and said, it's a long story. Wait for me to come out of the nether lotus. And it's fine. Sun Shu looked at the place where the spiritual talisman disappeared with some heartache. He secretly grumbled in his heart, hoping that Xiaohua could give a reliable reason. Otherwise, it would be difficult for him to explain to Sun Ming. Oh right, senior brothers, how's the harvest this time? Xiaohua's gaze turned and asked with a smile. If I could find it, would I have come back late? Qian Diheng said unhappily. You look good, and you came back so early. Don't tell me hee, Xiaohua laughed. Just as he was about to say something, he heard an earthquake in the distance. The ground of the nether lotus shook slightly, and everyone's attention was drawn away from Xiaohua. They all looked in the direction of the sound. The sky in the distance was extremely gloomy, but the numerous wind pillars were still wreaking havoc. They couldn't see anything special. It's that treasure. Qian Diheng immediately woke up and shouted. Let's go. Since there's no hope for the Zhongyao milk, we can't lose the treasure that can help us build our foundation. After saying that, he took the lead and flew towards the direction of the sound. Junior brother Qian, wait a moment. Kuan Fian was also anxious. He shouted and followed behind. Sun Shu's face was obviously anxious. She looked at Xiaohua and said, Junior brother Xiao, let's go quickly. If we're late, the treasure will be taken by others. Besides, junior brother Xiao, your cultivation is profound, and you are the most powerful person to compete for the treasure. If you don't go, we won't have much hope. Xiaohua saw that Sun Shu was talking to him while looking into the distance. He knew that Sun Shu also didn't expect that he would be able to obtain a lot of Zhongyao milk. He could only smile bitterly and said, I will listen to senior sister's instructions. All right, junior martial brother, follow this poor Taoist. Sun Shu also flew over, wanting to fly towards the source of the sound. Sun Shu and the others were anxious and had long forgotten about the threat of the space crack. However, Xiaohua didn't dare to be careless and secretly opened his delusion breaker Dharma Eye. Fortunately, he didn't encounter any invisible space crack in the time it took to finish a meal from the open space to the place where the sound came from. When Xiaohua arrived at the scene with Sun Shu, he couldn't help but be shocked by the miserable scene in front of him. There was a huge crater in front of him that was thousands of feet wide. Inside the crater, there was a violent wind howling. Through the delirium breaker Dharma eye, he could see a pool of blood. The crimson netherworld wind was spinning rapidly in the crater. It formed a huge hurricane whirlpool. In the center of the whirlpool, there was a 3-chi-long pinkish-blue lotus flower, blooming enchantingly. Netherworld lotus. Xiaohua suddenly thought of the words that Mo Qingyuan had unintentionally said when he was trading with him. Looking at the whirlpool, there were many broken limbs and cultivator corpses floating in the hurricane. They wouldn't sink for a while. On the ground around the depression, there were also many cultivator corpses. They were all thrown there in a tragic manner. Chapter 1783. These should be the disciples of the 3 sects who blocked the entrance to the netherworld enlightenment, and the disciples of the other sects who attacked their defenses. Xiaohua's divine sense swept over, and saw the corpses of nearly 200 people. His eyes finally landed on the whirlpool formed by the netherworld wind. Above the whirlpool, there were actually 2 mid-stage foundation establishment cultivators. Each of them had taken out their magic treasures, and were fighting to the death for the netherworld lotus. Furthermore, the 2 foundation establishment cultivators were surrounded by a dozen or so puppets that would occasionally assist them. Needless to say, one of them was Mo Qingyuan, who had just left, and the other was a cultivator that Xiaohua seemed somewhat familiar with. That's Martial Uncle Zhen Ming of your thunderous palace. Why is he here? Sun Shu didn't recognize Mo Qingyuan, but he recognized the other foundation establishment cultivator, who was fighting with Mo Qingyuan. He glanced at Xiaohua and said in astonishment, "What? Thunderous Palace cultivators?" Xiaohua's expression changed slightly. He said in a low voice, "Could he be a disciple of Swallow Thunder Ridge?" Martial Uncle Zhenming is really a disciple of Swallow Thunder Ridge. Sun Shu seemed to have thought of something, and his tone was somewhat gloomy. "Junior brother Xiao, you don't worry. Let's see." Xiaohua's expression was unusually gloomy. If Sun Shu could think of it, how could he not? How could a disciple of Swallow Thunder Ridge appear here for no reason? Even if he didn't come here on purpose, the grudge between him and Swallow Thunder Ridge had turned this unintentional encounter into intentional complications. At this moment, the trembling bright lightning emitted a foot-long screen of light as it spun. It was like a sheet of sword light that pierced towards Mo Qingyuan. At the same time, Mo Qingyuan's wooden dragon chopper also transformed into a wooden dragon. It circled the sun, swaying its tail and opening its mouth, wanting to cut the sun. However, the sun spun and its dazzling brilliance blocked the wooden dragon chopper to one side. "Ha ha ha, fellow Taoist, Mo's magic power is only SOSO. And your puppets are also ordinary. I advise you to turn back as soon as possible." Zheng Kong laughed and said, "Since this old man has arrived first, this nether lotus is this old man's. It's fate." "It's still too early to speak," Mo Qingyuan sneered. The green light around him trembled as he rubbed his hands together. Rays of green light flashed and 6 rays of green sword light suddenly appeared around Zhen Ming. The sword light had already appeared and immediately moved around Zhen Ming like a net. "Ah, a sword formation." Zhen Ming was clearly shocked. He had been focusing on Mo Qingyuan's wooden dragon chopper and the puppets. He had never expected Mo Qingyuan to have a sword formation. Moreover, the sword formation had already been set up in the vicinity of the Nether Lotus. That's right, this was the Azure Essence sword formation. This sword formation was several times more powerful than a single flying sword, but it had a shortcoming, which was that it had to be set up in advance. Previously, Mo Qingyuan wanted to use the sword formation to trap Xiaohua, who was not afraid of metal, earth and magnetism in the space. That was why he had used the puppets to stall Xiaohua while he set up the Azure Essence sword formation in front of the tunnel. In the end, the puppet ended up in Xiaohua's pocket, which was why he was restrained so much. This time, Mo Qingyuan had already planned to secretly release his flying swords when he attacked with the wooden dragon chopper. Earlier he had been fighting Zhen Ming while setting up the sword formation silently. Now that he had set up the sword formation perfectly and lured Zhen Ming into the Azure Essence sword formation, he was going to kill Zhen Ming in one fell swoop. Zhen Ming was clearly panicking. He waved his hand and wanted the bright lightning to fly in front of him to defend himself. However, Emoching Yuan's wooden dragon chopper happened to be between the bright lightning and Zhenming. No matter how the bright lightning flew, the wooden dragon chopper blocked it with its tail. Fellow Taoist, take care. Emoching Yuan grinned hideously and performed a sword art with his right hand. 6 green sword lights, which looked like harmless fishes swimming around Zhenming, immediately turned into stinging hornets and flew toward Zhenming from all directions. Zhenming was shocked. He waved his hand and many yellow talismans fell like rain. At the same time, Zhenming's body shone brightly as if all the defensive talismans had been activated. Humph, Emoching Yuan sneered, but his eyes were looking at Xiaohua in the distance, as well as Qian Dihing and Kuan-Fian who were standing near the vortex. Puff, puff, puff. Several high-grade yellow talismans were turned into talisman paper under the sharp flying swords. Zhenming waved his hands continuously, and many palms of thunder and fireballs only hit the 4 flying swords to the left and right, but they could not completely shoot them down. As for the other 2 flying swords, Zhenming could only shake his body and try his best to use the flying art to dodge. Unfortunately, he was now trapped in the sword formation. No matter how he tried to dodge, the 6 flying swords followed him like maggots. Dodging was only temporary. Xiao, junior brother. Sun Shu's face turned pale again. She whispered, should we go and help? Xiaohua's face was a little gloomy. Looking at the 6 sword lights in Emoching Yuan's sword formation, no one knew what he was thinking. Hearing Sun Shu's question, he said coldly, Senior Sister Sun, if you want to help, go ahead. I won't stop you. But if you want me to help, I'm sorry, I won't agree. Okay. Sun Shu bit her lips and answered decisively. Looking at Qian Dihing and Kuan-Fian, although they were a little far away, they still turned to look at Xiaohua. Seeing that Xiaohua did not move, they also did not fly up. Senior brother Qian, come over quickly. Xiaohua suddenly realized and immediately transmitted his voice. Yes. Hearing this, Qian Dihing turned and whispered to Kuan-Fian. The 2 were ready to fly away, but at this moment, Emoching Yuan, who was above the whirlpool, let out a long howl. Xiaohua and the others looked over, and saw that the 6 flying swords surrounding Zhenming were shining brightly. 2 of them instantly pierced Zhenming's hands that were releasing the palm thunder, and the other 4 sword lights pierced Zhenming's body. The brilliance on Zhenming's body flickered and then disappeared. Ah! Zhenming screamed and fell from the sky. His corpse also fell into the whirlpool, mixing with the qi refinement cultivators that he had killed earlier. Ha ha ha, Emoching Yuan laughed. He waved his hand and the bright thunder that had lost control fell into his hand. Then he pointed his finger and the 6 flying swords flew up into the sky. Then, Emoching Yuan did something that everyone present did not expect. He did not withdraw the 6 flying swords, and the wooden dragon chopper did not rush into the whirlpool to collect the nether lotus. Emoching Yuan pointed his finger, and the 6 flying swords actually flew out of the whirlpool. Old man Xiaohua was shocked when he saw the flying swords fly out. He slapped his hand, and the cloud-suppressing seal flew out of his body. The earthy yellow light protected him and Sun Shu. However, Xiaohua was still wrong. Emoching Yuan's flying swords did not fly toward Xiaohua at all. Instead, they surrounded Qian Dihing and Kuan-Fian. Xiaohua's expression changed immediately. He suddenly understood Emoching Yuan's scheme. He fellow Taoist Xiao. Emoching Yuan was not in a hurry to pick the nether lotus. Instead, he stood above the whirlpool and sneered. Just now it was a disciple of your sect, right? Looking at his cultivation, he should be your martial uncle. If you had joined forces with him, the one standing here right now should be the 2 of you. Xiaohua looked at him coldly and did not reply. Emoching Yuan continued. Although this nether lotus is a must-have item for Foundation establishment cultivators, and has nothing to do with your qi refinement cultivation, since fellow Taoist Xiao did not come to help, there must be a grudge between you and this cultivator. This grudge, it must not be small. This old man will kill this beast today. Won't it make you happy? However, since you did not come to help, then you must not let this news leak out. All the cultivators here must be killed. Especially your 3 fellow disciples. They are your biggest threat. This old man can tell with one look that the beautiful female cultivator beside you is your dual cultivation junior sister. This old man does not care. As for this pair of unfortunate mandarin ducks, since we made a deal before, this old man will help you get rid of it, so that you don't have to bear the crime of killing your fellow disciples. As Mo Qingyuan spoke, he pointed his finger. More than 10 puppets flew towards the Qi refinement disciples who were still alive on the ground. The 6 flying swords surrounding Kuan-Fian and Qian Diheng also flashed with green light. Xiao Hua's face was ashen. He pointed his finger, and the cloud-suppressing seal flew high into the sky. Rumble. The sound was deafening. He said sternly, "Senior Mo, don't say anything to sow discord. This junior understands what you mean. This junior will not fight with you for this whatever nether lotus. Let go of this junior's fellow disciples." He fellow Taoist Xiaohua, in fact, I also feel very regretful. You have given I a lot of benefits. If this is the nether lotus, I will let you have it. Previously in the space, I even wanted to tell you this news. However, this is the nether lotus, and it is also something this old man must have. There is no other way. Hearing Mo Qingyuan's extremely fearful attitude toward Xiao Hua, Kuan-Fian and Qian Diheng were more shocked than frightened. There was even a trace of joy. After all, with Xiao Hua's existence, their lives were guaranteed. However, since fellow Taoist Xiao is so tactful, this old man will spare the two of them on account of our previous friendship. You all must swear that you will not leak this matter, and this old man will let you all leave. At this point, several screams came from the distance. The remaining cultivators must have been killed by the puppets. Okay. Xiao Hua helplessly looked at Sun Shu. The two of them swore on the spot, so did Kuan-Fian and Qian Diheng. Ha. At this time, Mo Qingyuan pointed his finger. The wooden dragon chopper flew to the left side of the nether lotus, swung its dragon tail, and cut off the crystal-clear pink lotus. Then Mo Qingyuan waved his hand, and the nether lotus fell into his hand. He put it into a jade box, and then several talismans were stuck on the jade box. After putting away the jade box, Mo Qingyuan was in a good mood. After putting away the flying sword and the puppets, he looked at Xiao Hua and said, "Fellow Taoist Xiao is indeed I's lucky star. Today's trip to the netherworld. This old man can expect to reach the nascent soul realm. This old man still has the same words. If you have time, you can come to this old man. This old man has a better opportunity for you. Senior, keep it for yourself," Xiao Hua said coldly. Ha. Mo Qingyuan laughed, and his figure flew up, leaving the remaining 4 cultivators of the Imperial Thunder Sect. After a while, Qian Diheng, who was standing still and not daring to move, asked tentatively, "Junior brother Xiao, did that senior leave?" "He left. We should also prepare to leave," Xiao Hua said unhappily. Ha, Qian Diheng laughed, and immediately flew into the whirlpool. "Junior brother Xiao, quickly come and help me. This nether lotus is a legendary thing. Even if it's just a root, it must be very useful." Did you make a mistake? This greedy. Xiao Hua didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and his gloomy heart had a little bit of a smile. Then his figure flew up, and directly flew into the sky above the nether lotus. "I will also help." Kuan-Fian smiled, and also followed behind Xiao Hua. However, the moment Kuan-Fian got close to Xiao Hua, Kuan-Fian suddenly stretched out his hand, and patted Xiao Hua's shoulder. Chapter 1784. Kuan-Fian very casually patted Xiao Hua's shoulder, as gentle as a lover's caress. But the moment Kuan-Fian's hand touched Xiao Hua's shoulder, her white jade-like hand immediately flashed with a bewitching red light. Immediately after, the red light around Xiao Hua's body flashed, and all the magic power in her body instantly froze. Her magic power froze. Xiao Hua's flying technique immediately lost its effect, and her entire body fell from the sky. It fell straight into the whistling vortex. Xiao Hua looked up at Kuan-Fian, her eyes filled with disbelief. And Kuan-Fian's eyes were also filled with grief, regret, and reluctance. Xiao Hua. Sun Shu didn't fly over. Instead, she stood outside the wind tunnel. and very clearly saw everything that was happening above the whirlpool. That heart-wrenching, lung-splitting, eternal cry immediately came from her mouth. Sun Shu's figure also charged into the wind tunnel at the same time. Junior brother Xiao? Qian Diheng only heard it now, and when he turned around, Xiaohua was already very far away. Kuan-Fian, are you crazy? Kuan-Fian couldn't help but shout. Kuan-Fian absent-mindedly looked at her own hand, her gaze somewhat sluggish. Everything that happened on the way from Imperial Thunder Sect to Ming, she flashed through her mind like lightning, and Xiaohua's unusually warm smile actually froze in her mind. Just at this moment, a yellow shadow suddenly appeared, like a yellow wind blowing from the whirlpool, instantly scraping towards Kuan-Fian's white swan-like neck. Kuan-Fian still hadn't escaped from remembering Xiaohua's kindness, when she felt a chill on her neck, and all the strength in her body was sucked out of her body. All the magic power in her body also disappeared in an instant. Kuan-Fian only felt her vision darken, and with her mind filled with Xiaohua's smiling face, she fell into the whirlpool along with Xiaohua. Senior sister Sun Qian Diheng stood in the air above the whirlpool, dumbfounded as he watched everything that happened in a flash. He saw a yellow shadow flash in front of his eyes, and a light flashed past Kuan-Fian's neck, and then he saw a stream of black blood flowing out from her neck. At the same time Kuan-Fian's corpse fell, that yellow shadow flew into the whirlpool, and stopped in the whirlpool for a moment. At this moment, Qian Diheng saw it clearly. It was actually a small yellow marten. Soon after, the little marten seemed to have pounced onto Xiaohua's body and disappeared. Or perhaps it fell into the whirlpool and disappeared. Qian Diheng didn't know, because at this moment, from the corner of his eyes, he saw Sun Shu rushing towards Xiaohua, who was in the whirlpool without hesitation. Qian Diheng was greatly alarmed. He hastily shouted and rushed over, pulling back Sun Shu, who was desperately trying to save Xiaohua's body. Xiaohua. There were already tears on Sun Shu's cheeks, one hand still reaching towards the raging whirlpool, but in the whirlpool, many of the corpses had long disappeared. The place where Xiaohua and Kuan-Fian had landed was the center of the whirlpool, and at this time, they had already been sucked into the depths of the wind tunnel. Sun Shu's white and slender fingers trembled slightly in the wind. He looked so helpless and hopeless. Seeing Sun Shu so sad, how could Qian Diheng not know? He did not dare to stay on the whirlpool for too long. He pulled Sun Shu and flew out of the wind tunnel. Sun Shu struggled a few times, looking at the turbulent whirlpool. All the strength in her body disappeared, and she allowed Qian Diheng to pull her back out. However, just as the two of them stood on the ground, boom! A deafening sound that shook the heavens and earth came from the wind tunnel. The wind pillar once again rushed out from the wind tunnel, with an aura that could destroy everything. It was 100 times faster than before, fiercely rushing up, and in the time it took to drink a cup of tea, the wind pillar had already rushed into the 9 heavens. Qian Diheng and Sun Shu were once again dumbfounded. Looking at the changes in the wind pillar in disbelief, they felt that their own cultivation was insignificant. After a while, Qian Diheng said in an incomparably lonely voice, "Senior Sun, Junior brother Xiao and Kuan-Fian, I'm afraid there is no hope of survival. We should get out of here as soon as possible." "No, I still want to wait a little longer. Xiaohua has always been mysterious. This little bit of wind pillar definitely won't take his life." Sun Shu's tone was firm, but there was already sorrow in her voice. "All right, then this little brother will accompany Senior Sun." Qian Diheng nodded and said, "However, close to 200 disciples have died here, and there will be many cultivators coming soon. If we don't get out quickly, I'm afraid we will be attacked by others. In this way, no one will know about Junior brother Xiao and Kuan-Fian's death. Moreover, as to why Kuan-Fian killed Junior brother Xiao, I'm afraid no one will investigate. And Junior brother Qian, you don't need to persuade me, I know." Sun Shu's eyes flashed with determination, and she said word by word, "I will definitely return to Sun Lei Palace and report this matter to Master, and ask Master to report to the Palace Master to investigate this matter. Yes, even if Kuan-Fian is a disciple of Sun Lei Palace, she can't attack and kill her own junior brother for no reason." Qian Diheng added, "Not to mention that junior brother Xiao has saved us countless times along the way. Yes, although the strength of Myriad Thunder Valley is weak, There is still my Sunlay Palace. I don't believe that a little Swallow Thunder Ridge can deceive the entire Imperial Thunder Sect. Yes, there is still my Sunlay Palace. Qian Diheng stamped his feet and said, Junior brother Xiao and I are as close as brothers. I will definitely avenge junior brother Xiao. Humph, let's go throw the surrounding corpses into the wind pillar, and take all the storage bags, magic tools, magic weapons and other things. Sun Shu calmed down and ordered very calmly. Yes, Qian Diheng's expression relaxed and asked again. What about the corpses of the 4 senior brothers? Throw them all away. Sun Shu sneered. Think about how they treated us that day? How they treated Xiaohua. The corner of Qian Diheng's mouth twitched slightly, but he didn't say a word. He sighed and flew around the wind pillar. Sun Shu's heart was ice cold. It was as if with Xiaohua's departure, the world lost its warmth. She stood up and slowly walked towards the wind pillar. The biting cold wind blew the brilliance around her body until it was extinguished. That flickering brilliance was like Sun Shu's thoughts, rising and falling, reminiscing and reminiscing. Bits and pieces of the past, like a hurricane, blew into her mind. Why is this? What exactly is going on with Kuan-Fian? Where did that little yellow sable come from? Even Kuan-Fian, who was at the 12th layer of the Qi refining stage, was killed with one strike. Why did Zhenming also appear in the netherworld? Who was that Foundation Establishment senior who killed Zhenming? How did Xiaohua and that senior get to know each other? It seems that senior was very afraid of Xiaohua. A middle-stage Foundation Establishment cultivator actually used the lives of Kuan-Fian and Qian Diheng to threaten Xiaohua, fearing that Xiaohua would fight over the netherworld lotus with him. Xiaohua, are you really that loose cultivator at the 10th layer of the Qi refining stage from before? The more Sun Shu thought, the more blurred her eyes became. Chapter 1785. Xiaohua didn't pay any attention to Kuan-Fian's actions, nor did he expect Kuan-Fian to suddenly plot against him. That bewitching red light flashed around him, and it was as if he had fallen into an ice cave. Not only was his entire body frozen, even his meridians were frozen. Xiaohua looked at Kuan-Fian in disbelief. He instantly connected some of Kuan-Fian's previous actions with Zhenqi's appearance. Sigh, Xiaohua didn't have time to sigh in his heart before the great strength Vajradharma body and the dragon transformation art circulated in his body, and his entire body faintly glowed with a golden brilliance. This yellow talisman was probably refined by a Foundation Establishment cultivator. The great strength Vajradharma body and the dragon transformation art circulated rapidly, but they actually couldn't break through that bewitching red restriction in a short period of time. Xiaohua was aghast. At that moment, his body was already swaying along with the whirlpool. Xiaohua knew that he was about to fall into the whirlpool and lose control like a leaf falling into water. Looking at Qian Diheng's astonishment, Sun Shu's sorrow, and Kuan-Fian's absent-mindedness, Xiaohua's heart was also filled with despair, and his mind immediately entered the space. Xiaohua's original intention was to let Little Yellow escape from the space and not fall into 9 hells with him. So he ordered Little Yellow to kill Kuan-Fian. Who would have thought that before Xiaohua could call Little Silver out, Little Yellow would actually return to his side and fall into the whirlpool with him? Xiaohua had no choice but to put Little Yellow into the space. Of course, Xiaohua was at the root of the Nether Lotus at that moment, so it was very easy for him to put it away. Just as Xiaohua put away Little Yellow and the root of the Nether Lotus, his entire body immediately started to spin like a windmill. Moreover, the incomparable attractive force in the center of the whirlpool pulled Xiaohua into the ground. Xiaohua only took one look at Kuan-Fian's corpse before the whole world started to spin. Xiaohua didn't dare open his eyes as he desperately circulated the dragon transformation art and the great strength Vajradharma body to break free of the restriction, wanting to escape before he fell into the depths of the wind pillar. With a light paw sound, Xiaohua's body relaxed. His meridians moved, and his magic power instantly surged in all directions. At the same time, the great strength Vajradharma body emerged from his body. Great! Xiaohua was secretly delighted. Just as he was about to open his delusion breaker Dharma eye, A suction force that was 100 times stronger than before was born. Xiaohua simply didn't have any chance to struggle, and he was immediately pulled down several hundred meters. This suction force was so strong that it was like millions of hands were trying to tear Xiaohua's body apart. Even though Xiaohua had already refined his phoenix body, even though he had already released the mighty Vajra body, he was still unable to resist the might of the netherworld wind. In an instant, the brilliance around Xiaohua's body flickered, and all of his defenses were torn apart. Moreover, his body was breaking apart inch by inch, and specks of blood were seeping out from within. This is bad. Xiaohua was shocked. Enduring this heart-wrenching pain, his mind raced as he desperately circulated the Vajra Dharma body technique, trying his best to convert this pain into motivation for cultivation. At the same time, the 13,200 small dots within Xiaohua's body also faintly flickered with a faint reddish-black brilliance, healing Xiaohua's torn body at an extremely fast pace. However, the blood that had already flowed out was blown by the netherworld wind, and specks of blood fell into the wind. Among the blood, apart from a few glittering golden threads that fell down, everything else disappeared in a flash. Below the wind pillar, an unknown distance away, there was precisely a fist-sized spirit insect. This golden thread, perhaps it could fall, or perhaps it would be blown to some other place, but if it could fall, then perhaps there would be another great variable in this world. Xiaohua activated the mighty Vajra Dharma body technique, and was barely able to resist the netherworld wind that could directly tear apart ordinary cultivators. Then, taking advantage of the fact that the suction force was stronger than the rotation force, he struggled to break free from the rotation and stood upright. Moreover, he also opened his delusion breaker Dharma eye. What the Dharma eye saw was the same as what he saw in the origin magnetic space. The only difference was that he was currently inside the wind pillar, and his entire body was swirling with viscous blood. And his body was falling into the abyss at an extremely fast speed. This won't do, I can't fall anymore. I must stop and escape from the wind pillar. Xiaohua immediately had an idea. However, how could he reduce or even stop his falling speed? Xiaohua's entire body surged with brilliance, and he used the awakening thunder escape. However, following the surge of Xiaohua's magic power, the awakening thunder escape only reduced his speed by a little. It was simply not enough to reverse the current situation. After pondering for a moment, Xiaohua waved his hand, and took out the two magic tools Zichen and Guanwei from the space. Under the urging of his magic power, the two magic tools exploded one after another several zhang below Xiaohua. The powerful explosive force indeed reduced Xiaohua's speed by 30%. Right now, Xiaohua was delighted. Taking advantage of the fleeting opportunity, his body suddenly moved. He actually used the ethereal steps shadow shifting technique, and moved to the side with difficulty. This side was the key. Xiaohua immediately escaped from the center of the whirlpool, and his entire body began to fall while revolving around the center of the whirlpool. Seeing his body begin to rotate, Xiaohua tried his best to use the awakening thunder escape. The direction of this awakening thunder escape was not upwards, but straight outwards. Thus, within the wind pillar, Xiaohua revolved around the center of the whirlpool. Every time he revolved, he would go further and further away. However, the speed of Xiaohua's descent did not decrease in the slightest. Xiaohua did not have time to care about this at this moment. After flying for an unknown period of time, the more he flew, the more alarmed Xiaohua became. This wind pillar was only a few hundred zhang above the ground. How could it be so wide underground? Just as he was thinking, Xiaohua's body suddenly became light, and the force pulling him down abruptly disappeared. Haha! Xiaohua was overjoyed. He hurriedly leaped up, preparing to fly towards the ground. However, right at this moment, from the side of his body, a force even stronger than the downward force just now appeared, pulling him horizontally. Xiaohua's body was originally agitating all the magic power in his body to use the awakening thunder escape to fly to the side. At this moment, his speed did not decrease at all, so Xiaohua did not have the slightest reaction, and was immediately pulled in. However, at this moment, Xiaohua's illusion-breaking technique, I saw that this was the same whirlpool as before, but the direction was horizontal. Oh no! Xiaohua smiled bitterly. At this moment, he no longer dared to escape by spinning horizontally like before. If he was spinning horizontally like this, who knew if he would be facing upwards or downwards? If he was facing downwards, wouldn't he die even faster? Moreover, within the whirlpool, there was not only a pulling force, but also an inexplicable force. It was constantly corroding Xiaohua's magic power and his defense. Previously, Xiaohua had even shot out a yellow talisman, but the yellow talisman was like a talisman paper. It was immediately torn apart and had no effect at all. On the contrary, Xiaohua's mighty Vajra Dharma body emitted a faint golden light under the pull of the netherworld wind. Although it was somewhat worn out, it still looked abnormally solid. Moreover, under Xiaohua's persistent cultivation, there was faint progress. Forget it. Xiaohua temporarily sucked in his heart of struggle. While cultivating the mighty Vajra Dharma body with all his might, he slightly opened his illusion-breaking technique eye and carefully sized up his body. After an unknown period of time, Xiaohua also did not know how many whirlpools of whirlpools had captured him. Whether it was up or down, left or right, Xiaohua was about to see clearly. The whirlpools here were simply disorderly, and the space was also inconceivably large. The scarlet stickiness in his Dharma eyes was almost boundless. Moreover, the longer he stopped, the stickiness became more and more viscous. Xiaohua even felt that stickiness on his body. The whirlpools also gradually turned into liquid. It's over. Xiaohua immediately panicked. In this netherworld, he was just a small ant. Other than being teased by the netherworld wind, what other fate could there be? Moreover, under this kind of power, not to mention Xiaohua's qi refining cultivation, even if he was a Jindan, foundation establishment, nascent soul, or spirit severing, he would not have any means to escape. However, fortunately, Xiaohua still had his Dharma body. Moreover, under the tempering of the netherworld wind, there was actually some progress. However, this progress could barely make up for the loss. When the loss exceeded the gain, it would be the day of Xiaohua's death. Just when Xiaohua was feeling discouraged, his body suddenly seemed to have bumped into something. A burst of brilliance lingered around his body, and Xiaohua's figure suddenly disappeared within the whirlpool. Moreover, the pressure on Xiaohua's body suddenly disappeared. A kind of pressure that came from all directions wantonly kneaded Xiaohua's body like a giant hand. Xiaohua's illusion-breaking technique, I only had time to see a colorful fluorescent light and a black and white light. And then he closed his eyes tiredly. Teleportation? This sudden pressure was so familiar that Xiaohua could not help but groan. It was just that this pressure was much greater than the previous teleportation formation. If it was not for his Dharma body, he would have fainted the moment he was teleported. The teleportation time was extremely short. Very soon, Xiaohua's body relaxed. Before he could open his Dharma eyes, another horizontal suction force came, and Xiaohua could not help but fly forward again. Sigh. At this time, Xiaohua was completely speechless. He sighed and did his best to reforge his Dharma body, hoping that he could stay in this boundless netherworld wind for a while longer, and obtain a trace of vitality. After an unknown amount of time, Xiaohua felt that he had been teleported several times. He did not know where he was at this time, and what he saw with his Dharma eyes was that the scarlet color of the netherworld wind was sometimes shallow and sometimes deep. It was not the same. The only thing that was the same was the incomparably powerful tearing force of the netherworld wind. Although Xiaohua's Vajra Dharma body was improving very quickly, under the might of this heaven and earth, he was already at his wit's end, and was in imminent danger. His Dharma body could not be any thinner. Chapter 1786. Seeing the golden brilliance of Xiaohua's last line of defense, the Vajra Dharma body, gradually disappear, Xiaohua immediately felt his hands and feet go cold. He could already imagine the miserable state of his body being torn into inch by inch after the Vajra Dharma body disappeared. However, the moment the Vajra Dharma body disappeared, the 132 million small dots that made up the Vajra Dharma body suddenly appeared. These 132 million small dots shrank at an extremely fast speed, and actually condensed into one. Then this one and only small dot flashed with a black and red flame and disappeared. But after disappearing, this one and only small dot appeared again in the blink of an eye. Then the 132 million small dots separated from this one and only small dot. However, once the small dots were born this time, they contained a desolate aura. Moreover, although these small dots corresponded to the 132 million small dots on Xiaohua's body, the composition of these small dots was already different from the composition of the small dots on Xiaohua's body. The outline formed by these small dots was not the Vajra Dharma body from before, but the shape of a phoenix. Moreover, because of the changes in these small dots, the 132 million small dots on Xiaohua's body also flash with black and red flames, and actually wanted to follow the appearance of the phoenix Dharma body and become a phoenix. Xiaohua's body gradually changed. The originally grayish-white skeleton suddenly flashed with a golden brilliance. After the golden brilliance passed, it became a skeleton that was 80% crimson and 20% white. The crimson color on the skeleton brightened and tightly wrapped around the body. The body struggled several times but was unable to break free. The 132 million small dots disappeared again, and the body returned to its previous appearance. However, the outline of the phoenix Dharma body had already formed. The wing-like outline slightly flapped, and the crimson viscous liquid in the netherworld wind was extracted, filling the outline of the phoenix Dharma body in a moment. When the phoenix Dharma body was filled and formed, a golden light flashed outside the Dharma body, and a perfect golden body appeared. Xiaohua was dumbstruck as he sensed all of this, and sensed the formation of a phoenix Dharma body. However, what Xiaohua didn't expect was that the moment the phoenix Dharma body took shape, an indescribable impulse rushed straight to his head. Xiaohua couldn't help but clench his fists. He raised his head and roared. Correspondingly, the phoenix Dharma body also spread its wings. A phoenix cry resounded within the pillar of wind. At this time, Xiaohua's body was swept up by a column of wind that came from an unknown direction. He was about to be carried away, but a similar phoenix cry came from the side of the column of wind. This sound was very weak, but in Xiaohua's ears, it was like adding oil to a fire, causing the heat in Xiaohua's body to surge even higher. In fact, Xiaohua's phoenix celestial body seemed to have gained sentience, as if it had sensed an ancient desire. With a clear cry, it spread its wings and flew towards the source of the phoenix cry. Under the guidance of the avatar, Xiaohua's corporeal body actually escaped from the wind pillar and rushed into another one. This pillar of wind was different from the previous one. It seemed to be blowing out from the depths of the netherworld. It was incomparably cold. However, this coldness in the heat of Xiaohua's heart, in the indescribable desire of the phoenix law body, was actually like a cool summer breeze. A feminine phoenix cry rang out. This phoenix cry was actually filled with extreme joy. Xiaohua's phoenix law body responded with the same joy. With a loud bang, Xiaohua only felt his eyes brighten. He didn't know where he had flown out from, nor did he know if he had escaped from the teleportation array. In short, Xiaohua's eyes were filled with a world of ice. At this time, Xiaohua's eyes were crimson red. The phoenix law body was even more impatient. Its body flickered with golden light and red flames lingered around it. And in the cold valley where Xiaohua appeared, there was a light green phoenix law body. It was incomparably feminine, and it was barely able to maintain itself in the air. Under the phoenix law body, there was a woman who looked like a fairy. This woman was currently unconscious, and her body was covered in ice, slightly stiff. Wasn't this woman Fairy Hongxia, who failed to break through the icy wind cultivation method? When Xiaohua's phoenix law body saw Fairy Hongxia's phoenix law body, it let out a clear cry and pounced over. Fairy Hongxia's phoenix law body was also filled with joy. As it cried out, the icy green color gradually faded, and it gradually became pure green. Fairy Hongxia's body was still green, but within her skin, there was a corresponding pink color. When Xiaohua saw Fairy Hongxia, his eyes lit up with flames of madness. He followed his phoenix celestial body and flew in front of Fairy Hongxia. Fairy Hongxia suddenly realized what was going on, and her burning face turned pale. Fairy Hongxia didn't have time to open her eyes. She stretched out her hand, and was about to slap Xiaohua's forehead. However, before this palm could be released, it was immediately grabbed by a strong hand. Fairy Hongxia smiled sadly. She forced herself to circulate her magic power, and was about to break her own heart meridians. However, at this critical moment, Xiaohua's voice entered her ears. Xiaohua. Fairy Hongxia actually recognized Xiaohua and hurriedly opened her eyes. Indeed, although she hadn't seen him twice, his unforgettable face was right in front of her eyes. Fairy Hongxia asked almost pleadingly, Xiaohua, is it you? Fairy Hongxia's voice called out more than 10 times before Xiaohua woke up slightly. Xiaohua replied in a daze. However, Fairy Hongxia was still worried. She bit his ear and asked, what did I say to you at the Feather Immortal Gathering? You have made your decision. I duel with you. Xiaohua said the words that only the two of them knew. Seeing Xiaohua's last line of defense, the golden brilliance of his Vajra Dharma body, gradually disappearing, Xiaohua immediately felt his hands and feet go cold. He could already imagine the miserable state of his body being torn to pieces after the Vajra Dharma body disappeared. However, at the moment when the Vajra Law body disappeared, the 13,200 small dots that formed the Vajra Law body suddenly appeared. These 13200 small dots shrank rapidly, and actually condensed into one. Then this small dot flashed with a black and red flame and disappeared. However, after it disappeared, this small dot appeared again in the blink of an eye. Then the 13,200 small dots separated from this small dot. However, as soon as these tiny dots were born, they contained a desolate aura. Moreover, although these tiny dots corresponded to the 132,200 tiny dots on Xiaohua's body, the composition of these tiny dots was already different from the composition of the tiny dots on Xiaohua's body. The outline of these small dots was not the Vajrala body from before, but the shape of a phoenix. In fact, because of the changes in these small dots, the 13,200 small dots on Xiaohua's body also flashed with black and red flames. They actually wanted to follow the appearance of the phoenix law body and transform into the shape of a phoenix. Xiaohua's body gradually changed. The originally grayish-white bones suddenly flashed with a golden brilliance. After the golden brilliance passed, it became a skeleton that was 80% red and 20% white. The red color on the skeleton shone brightly and tightly wrapped around the body. The body struggled several times but was unable to break free. The 13200 small dots disappeared again, and the body returned to its previous appearance. However, the outline of the phoenix law body had already formed. The wing-like outline slightly flapped, and the scarlet viscous liquid in the netherworld wind was extracted and filled the outline of the phoenix law body in a moment. When the phoenix law body was filled and formed, a golden light flashed outside the law body. Unexpectedly, another perfect golden body appeared. Xiaohua was dumbstruck as he sensed all of this and sensed the formation of a phoenix law body. However, what Xiaohua did not expect was that the moment the phoenix law body formed, an indescribable impulse rushed to his head. Xiaohua could not help but clench his fists. He raised his head and roared. Correspondingly, the phoenix law body also spread its wings and a phoenix cry resounded in the wind pillar. At this moment, Xiaohua's body was swept up by a wind pillar in an unknown direction, and was about to be moved in a certain direction. However, the same phoenix cry came from the side of the wind pillar. That sound was very weak, but in Xiaohua's ears it was like adding oil to the fire, causing the heat in Xiaohua's body to surge even more. Even Xiaohua's phoenix law body seemed to have intelligence, as if it had sensed an ancient desire. With a clear cry, it spread its wings and flew toward the source of the phoenix cry. Under the guidance of the law body, Xiaohua's body actually broke free from the wind pillar and rushed into another wind pillar. This wind pillar was different from the previous one. It seemed to blow out from the depths of the netherworld, and was actually incomparably cold. However, this coldness in the heat of Xiaohua's heart, and the indescribable desire of the phoenix law body, was actually like a cool summer wind. A feminine phoenix cry rang out. This phoenix cry was actually filled with extreme joy. Xiaohua's phoenix law body responded with the same joy. Boom. Xiaohua only felt his eyes light up. He didn't know where he flew out from, nor did he know if he had escaped from the teleportation array. In short, Xiaohua saw a world of ice in front of him. At this moment, Xiaohua's eyes were crimson red, and the Phoenix Law body was even more anxious. Golden light flashed around its body, and red flames lingered around it. In the cold valley where Xiaohua appeared, there was a light green Phoenix Law body. It was incomparably soft, and it was barely able to maintain itself in the air. Under the Phoenix Law body, there was a fairy-like woman. This woman was currently unconscious, and her body was already covered in ice, slightly stiff. Wasn't this woman Fairy Hongxia, who failed to break through the icy wind cultivation method? When Xiaohua's Phoenix Law body saw Fairy Hongxia's Phoenix Law body, it let out a clear cry and pounced over. Jie. Fairy Hongxia's Phoenix Law body was also happy, and it cried out. The icy green color gradually faded, and it gradually became pure green. Fairy Hongxia's body was still green, but her skin faintly had a corresponding pink color. When Xiaohua saw Fairy Hongxia, his eyes lit up with flames of madness. He followed his phoenix celestial body and flew in front of Fairy Hongxia. Fairy Hongxia suddenly realized what was going on, and her burning face turned pale. Fairy Hongxia didn't have time to open her eyes. She stretched out her hand and was about to slap Xiaohua's forehead. However, before this palm could be released, it was immediately grabbed by a strong hand. Fairy Red Dawn bitterly smiled. She forcefully revolved her magic power, and was about to shatter her own heart meridians, but at this critical moment, Xiaohua's voice entered her ears. Xiaohua. Fairy Hongxia actually recognized Xiaohua, and hurriedly opened her eyes. Sure enough, although she hadn't seen him twice, his unforgettable face was right in front of her eyes. Fairy Hongxia asked almost pleadingly, Xiaohua, is it you? Fairy Hongxia's voice called out a dozen times, and only then did Xiaohua wake up a little. Xiaohua responded in a daze. However, Fairy Hongxia was still worried. She bit his ear and asked, what did I say to you at the Feather Immortal Gathering? You have made your decision. I will, with you. Xiaohua said the words that only the two of them knew. To be continued. For mobile users, please go to m.com to read. Chapter 1787. The heaven and earth spiritual chi in the entire icy valley surged along with the flapping of the wings of the two Dharma bodies. Every time the male phoenix Dharma body flapped, it would enter the female phoenix Dharma body, while the female phoenix Dharma body would return to the male phoenix Dharma body. The phoenix Dharma body actually caused the icy valley to be filled with the feeling of spring. When Xiaohua was slightly awake, he could already feel the rapid flow of Fairy Hongxia's true qi. At the same time, Xiaohua also sensed that something was wrong with Fairy Hongxia's cultivation. As the saying goes, solitary yin does not give birth, solitary yang does not grow. The Ice Phoenix cultivation method used the solitary yin in the Ice Phoenix bloodline to stimulate and increase one's cultivation. However, success depended on solitary yin, and failure also depended on solitary yin. This solitary yin gives birth to yang was the crux of the Ice Phoenix cultivation method. Countless cultivators with the Ice Phoenix bloodline had lost their lives to this solitary yin gives birth to yang. Although Fairy Hongxia's talent was outstanding, but in the icy valley, she was also envied by the heavens. Xiaohua's bloodline, needless to say, it was formed from the blood and flesh of the ancient demonic phoenix. Although its yin-yang attribute was mysterious, its godly bones were of the fire attribute. The condensed phoenix Dharma body was incomparably yang. Furthermore, the Vajra Dharma body was destroyed and the Phoenix Dharma body was reborn. Using the mysterious scarlet substance in the netherworld wind as its body, it was also yang. Therefore, it was the best for Fairy Hongxia's pure yin. Xiaohua felt his true yang and Fairy Hongxia's true yin slowly harmonizing with each other. Unconsciously, he thought of the secret dual cultivation technique that he had obtained a long time ago. He had originally wanted to give this technique to Xiang Yang and his wife. In his free time, he had roughly looked through it. Now was the time to examine this secret technique. Furthermore, Xiaohua's body was true qi, while Fairy Hongxia's body was true essence. Although the blending of true yin and true yang had nothing to do with transcendence energy, It was true qi that flowed. In this aspect, Xiaohua was naturally inferior to Fairy Hongxia. Xiaohua secretly used the secret dual cultivation technique, but Fairy Hongxia sensed it the moment he used it. However, after a long while, Xiaohua suddenly realized that even though it was a dual cultivation technique, under the most fundamental fusion of his true yang and Fairy Hongxia's true yin, everything was just a bunch of small details. Everything was just a bunch of beautiful flowers, and couldn't be used for real. My dear Xiao, Fairy Hongxia muttered. Don't do too many useless things. The great Tao is the simplest. After an unknown amount of time, perhaps several hours, several days, or even more than 10 days, several phoenix cries could be heard. Among them, there was the joy of the male phoenix Dharmakaya and the unwillingness of the female phoenix Dharmakaya. Xiaohua, who was below the avatar, also frowned. How could Fairy Hongxia not know what Xiaohua was thinking? Fairy Hongxia said softly, My dear Xiao, I thought that once I bid farewell to my dear Xiao, it would be an eternal farewell. I could only freeze here alone. Now the heavens are treating you and me well. This concubine is able to reunite with Xiao Lang here. I am already satisfied with this gathering. How could I not know your intentions? There are times when a person's strength is limited. I won't blame you. As she spoke, Fairy Hongxia tried to push Xiaohua away. Ha ha ha, Hongxia, my wife, don't underestimate your husband. Xiaohua laughed heartily. With a wave of his hand, a piece of burning fire essence flame crystal appeared. He slapped his hand on his waist, and immediately, a red flame was born from Xiaohua's body. Furthermore, the endless heat in his meridians was like an endless stream of spirit spring water, flowing into Fairy Hongxia's body. After an unknown amount of time, the two of them flashed with light. Xiaohua's body was surrounded by red light, and Fairy Hongxia's body was green light. Amidst the red and green light, a light shield appeared around the two of them. Within the light shield, the meridians of the two of them were completely exposed. Oh, these are all the meridians in my memory? They are also the meridians that the dragon transformation skill needs to completely refine? Xiaohua sensed all the meridians. Those meridians were like dragons soaring through the 9 heavens. Fairy Hongxia was even more shocked. This kind of secret of heaven and earth, the mysteries of the human body, was something she had never imagined before. This knowledge of meridians opened a door that she would never have known before. The Xuanyan sect was a valley with endless icy rain. It was not as cold as the Ice Valley. However, there was a huge waterfall hanging from a mountain stream. A young naked cultivator was sitting cross-legged at the bottom of the waterfall. The seemingly endless icy water continued to fall, and hit the cultivator's body as well as the rocks at the foot of the mountain. The rocks were extremely smooth, and there was a faint layer of ice forming. The deafening roar was the furious roar of the waterfall. This cultivator was, needless to say, Xiao Mao. Right in front of the waterfall, at the foot of the same mountain, Xiao Mao's master, Yuan Jiming, was expressionless. He looked at the faint glow around Xiao Mao, and Xiao Mao's slightly pained expression. At this moment, the corner of Yuan Jiming's eyes twitched. He raised his head slightly, and saw that in the sky of the valley, thick black clouds had unknowingly covered it. Furthermore, these black clouds contained lightning and thunder. Great! Yuan Jiming could not help but reveal a faint smile. He thought to himself, this old man was worried that without any external help, this kid would miss the opportunity to advance. This thunderstorm is the will of the heavens. In just a moment, as expected, thunder rumbled and lightning flashed. The torrential rain was like a heavenly river bursting its banks, gushing down violently. When the rainwater reached the valley, it was frozen into ice shards. Not only did the waterfall increase in water flow by several times, it was even colder. Under the waterfall, Xiao Mao's body was already green with ice. His lips were also purple, and his body could not help but tremble. Success or failure depends on this. Xiao Mao was naturally aware of his own situation. He tried his best to circulate the dragon transformation art to stabilize his meridians. As his true qi circulated rapidly in his body, he silently circulated the mental cultivation method taught by Xuanyan. He slowly channeled all the pain and ice into his body according to the secret method taught by Yuan Jiming. Bit by bit, he gathered his dermic powers. After an unknown period of time, Xiao Mao's body flashed, and a layer of invisible light formed instantly, blocking the huge force of the waterfall. Roar! Xiao Mao's dermic powers surged, and he could not help but stretch his neck and let out a long howl. However, as the howl disappeared, the light barrier also disappeared. The waterfall continued to fall on his body, causing countless splashes. Haha, Xiao Mao, come out! Yuan Jiming's eyes flashed with a hint of a smile as he transmitted his voice. Yes, this disciple understands. At this moment, Xiao Mao was already unfazed. He slowly got up from under the waterfall, seemingly effortlessly. Then he flew to the side of the cold pond, took out a Taoist robe from his storage bag and put it on. Master, this disciple did not disappoint you. Xiao Mao flew to Yuan Jiming's side, knelt and kowtowed. Not bad. Yuan Jiming nodded. I did not expect you to be such a rare talent. In such a short period of time, you actually broke through to the 12th level of Qi. This disciple does not dare. This is all thanks to Master's teachings, Xiao Mao said very respectfully. Ha ha ha. Yuan Jiming laughed. He clapped his hands, took out an item, and handed it over. This is the rainbow cloud. Take it and find a time to consume it. The rainbow cloud. Xiao Mao was shocked. He hurriedly caught it and whispered, this is a spiritual medicine that can stimulate spiritual will. Master, you are giving me. Haha, Xiao Mao, have you been complaining that I did not allow you to stimulate spiritual will when you were in the 11th level of Qi? Yuan Jiming laughed. Xiao Mao said fearfully, Master, this disciple does not dare. Even though I heard that the 11th level of Qi is the best time to stimulate spiritual will, but this is only hearsay. Master is a cultivator of the golden core stage. You definitely know more than me. This disciple does not dare to complain. Haha, that's good. Yuan Jiming stroked his goatee and laughed. Everyone thinks that the 11th level of Qi is the best time to stimulate spiritual will. There are even some cultivator families who think that the earlier the spiritual will is stimulated, the better. Some families even find strange ways to allow their disciples to have spiritual will at the 10th level of Qi. But how could they know that these are all stimuli? What do you mean by pulling a seedling to help it grow? This is called pulling a seedling to help it grow. Spiritual will is naturally produced. Why do you need to stimulate it? Xiao Mao was shocked. His face was filled with admiration. He looked at the rainbow cloud in his hand and whispered, Master, if I consume this rainbow cloud, won't it stimulate spiritual will? Child, Yuan Jiming scolded. The rainbow cloud is the nourishment for spiritual will. Stimulating spiritual will requires the rainbow cloud to stimulate the growth of spiritual will. Now that you are in the 12th level of Qi, there is already a seed of spiritual will. This rainbow cloud is the fertilizer for it to break out of its cocoon and die. Chapter 1788. I understand. Xiao Mao was overjoyed. Yuan Jiming waved his hand again, and a restrictive spell was cast. His mouth moved, but no sound could be heard. After the restrictive spell was removed, Xiao Mao said solemnly, Thank you, Master, for teaching me the secret technique. I will only teach it to my own disciple. I will never teach it to others. Good. Go ahead, nurture your divine sense first, then consolidate your cultivation. I've already prepared all the medicinal pills you need. Once you reach the peak of the 12th layer of Qi refining, you can prepare to go out and experience the world. Thank you, Master. Xiao Mao thanked him again. I have just reached Qi refining realm level 12. I am still far from the peak. It is too early for me to go out and train. Haha, Yuan Jiming only smiled and flew away without saying anything. Xiao Mao saw his master off respectfully. He sat cross-legged in front of the waterfall and closed his eyes for a moment. Then he opened his eyes and looked in the direction of the Imperial Thunder Sect. He smiled and said to himself, Brother Xiao, I didn't expect you to be a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect. Hehe, you even made a name for yourself. You won first place in the Feather Immortal Gathering. Even senior Brother Zhua admires you. However, Brother Xiao, I am also at Qi Refining Realm level 12 now. I wonder if I can build my foundation before you? At the very least, I'll be able to surprise Big Brother Xiao the next time we meet. Then, Xiao Mao smiled and started to recite the secret technique Yuan Jiming taught him. He started to nurture his spirit sense. Inside a quiet room in the Xuanlei Palace of the Imperial Thunder Sect. Bang! An exquisite jade bowl fell to the ground with a loud sound and shattered into pieces on the spot. Qian Diheng stood there in exasperation. He stared at the broken pieces of the jade bowl on the ground, as if he had a deep-seated hatred for it. I didn't expect that my Imperial Thunder Sect would end up like this. After a long while, Qian Diheng said unwillingly, "The lives of several disciples are gone. Just send out a few Foundation Establishment disciples to find out what's going on, and it'll be over." Instead, he was so concerned about a treasure used by a Foundation Establishment cultivator that he repeatedly asked about it. "This is only the Nether Lotus. If it's something inside the Nether Nan, wouldn't it search our souls?" Alas, Junior Marshal Brother Qian Diheng wasn't the only one inside the quiet room. Sun Shu and the expressionless Xue Xue were also present. Sun Shu said helplessly, "The ones who died were all aura refining disciples. In the eyes of the masters, they weren't even qualified to enter the sect. In our Imperial Thunder School, there are so many aura refining disciples that we can't even count them. Who would care? Moreover, these are all disciples who have yet to reach the Foundation Establishment stage." Qian Diheng sneered. "Even if it's us, we haven't reached Foundation Establishment in the past few years. In the eyes of our masters, we have no status." That's right, Junior Brother Qian also knows that 5 years have passed. In the 5 years since Mingxi returned, we've looked for Master countless times and spent a lot of effort. But until now it's still the same sentence. Without any evidence, Xiao Hua and Kuanfian are both dead. You can't frame a disciple of the Earth Thunder Palace based on our words alone. Truly hateful, truly hateful. Qian Diheng jumped up again. "This bunch of old farts, their brains have turned into paste. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, how could I possibly offend the Earth Thunder Palace? Just for a shocking Thunder Palace disciple who can't reach Foundation Establishment, the Heavenly Thunder Palace wouldn't offend the Earth Thunder Palace even more." Xue Xue, who hadn't spoken all this time, said indifferently, "Xiao Hua was originally a loose cultivator, and his master didn't have a good time either. Also, the Myriad Thunder Valley doesn't have any status in the shocking Thunder Palace. Xiao Hua's death is just death. It's impossible to let the matter of Kuanfian sneak attacking him become reality." As she spoke, Xue Xue clapped her hands and took out a 1,000 miles sound transmission talisman. She activated her magic power, and that red-yellow talisman flew into the air, spinning one round inside the quiet room before falling down again. "How many times has it been?" A trace of bitterness appeared in Sun Shu's eyes. "I saw Xiao Hua fall into the wind pillar with my own eyes. Even nascent soul cultivators don't dare to provoke that netherworld wind. Xiao Hua he 1,837 times. Xue Xue said indifferently, "I'll send one every day, until the day my Tao perishes and I die." AI Junior Sister Xue, you've also broken through to Qi Refining Stage 12. Time really flies. In these 5 years, my cultivation hasn't improved at all. Qian Diheng's face showed a bitter smile. Junior Sister Xue has always been training hard, waiting for the Foundation Establishment experience. Sun Shu's eyes flashed with a gaze that was unknown whether it was jealousy or regret as he said in a low voice, Qian Diheng blanked, looking at Xue Xue with an inconceivable expression. "Junior Sister Xue, could it be that you also want to go to the Netherworld to train?" "That's right." Xue Xue's face showed a trace of determination. "I don't know why you're going to the Netherworld. However, I also don't want to know. I only want to go and see Darling Xiao. You're stupid, Xue Xue." Qian Diheng understood as soon as he heard. He immediately thought of the situation where Sun Shu of course threw himself into the wind tunnel regardless of everything. He raised his eyes to look at Sun Shu, then turned to scold Xue Xue. Sun Shu felt Qian Diheng's gaze, and his face was slightly unnatural. Qian Diheng continued, Although the Foundation establishment disciples of my Imperial Thunder sect didn't enter the wind tunnel, they have already explored there many times, and really didn't find any trace of Xiaohua. If you go, could it be that you want to throw yourself into the wind tunnel? I do have such intentions. Shui didn't hide her thoughts. Junior sister Sun Shu wanted to comfort her, but he also felt the same way, so he didn't know how to say it. Qian Diheng rolled his eyes and said with a smile, "Since junior sister Shui has such intentions, then it's better to cultivate to the nascent soul stage. With the cultivation of a nascent soul cultivator, if you can enter the wind tunnel, you might be able to see junior brother Xiao who is cultivating in the wind tunnel." He, Sun Shu smiled sadly but didn't answer. Alas, what is love in the world? Even Dao-seeking cultivators don't know. Sun Shu sighed, turned his head and asked, "Junior brother Qian, it's the Foundation establishment experience once every 5 years again. Where do you plan to go this time?" Qian Diheng smiled bitterly and shook his head. "I haven't thought about it yet. But without junior brother Xiao, I don't feel safe anywhere." "Yes." Sun Shu's eyes flashed with a trace of undetectable affection. Clapping his hands, he took out a sound-transmitting talisman sent by Xiaohua and said, "Now this talisman is here, but the person is gone." The world is so heartless. Senior sister Sun, junior brother Qian, don't worry about Xiaohua. Junior sister thanks the two of you for your hard work in these years. For Xiaohua, you delayed your Foundation establishment. In the future, don't mention it again. A smile appeared on Shui's face. She stood up and saluted. If Xiaohua knows about this in the underworld, he will also be gratified. Alas, Xiaohua is very kind to us. This is what we should do. Qian Diheng quickly cupped his hands and said, "By the way, senior brother Qian, junior sister has one more thing to ask." Shui pursed her lips and smiled bitterly. "I'll do as you say," Qian Diheng quickly replied. Shui thought for a moment and said in a low voice, "Senior brother Qian, if you have free time during this experience, you might as well go to the Huanhua sect to pass a message, and senior brother understands." Qian Diheng shook his head and smiled bitterly. He looked down at the yellow talisman in his hand and said, "The most difficult thing to forget is the kindness of a beauty. Xiaohua, you bastard." You actually, while speaking, he activated the magic power in his hand and watched the yellow talisman slowly rotate in his hand. Qian Diheng stared at the yellow talisman and seemed to see Xiaohua. But at this moment a strange phenomenon occurred. The yellow talisman actually turned into a crimson red, streaked across the sky, and rushed out of the quiet room. Chapter 1789. In the Valley of Ice, the wind was still biting cold. However, at this moment, in front of the frozen exquisite cave, Fairy Hongxia, who was dressed in pink, was leaning against an ice pillar with a smile on her face. She was looking at Xiaohua, who was waving his fists and feet on the ice layer that was as smooth as a mirror. When Xiaohua stopped, Fairy Hongxia slowly walked over. She took out a white handkerchief and wiped Xiaohua's forehead. It seemed that Xiaohua's forehead was covered in fine beads of sweat. Xiaohua did not move. He only looked at the unusually virtuous Fairy Hongxia with a smile and said, "Where did this sweat come from? Why do you have to wipe it every time?" Fairy Hongxia wiped it carefully. Her eyes were filled with love. She covered her mouth and said, "When I was young, in the countryside of Luyang town, I once saw a farmer's wife wiping the sweat of her husband who was working in the fields. At that time, I was moved by their pure feelings. I swore in my heart that I would pursue this truest feeling in this life. I would do the most insignificant thing for my husband. Today Xiaohua is tired. Although there is no sweat, my heart still aches for you. How can I not wipe it?" When I was really tired. Why didn't you wipe it for me?" Xiaohua said with a naughty smile. Fairy Hongxia rolled her eyes at him and replied, "At that time, I was also tired. Who would wipe who?" "Ah." Xiaohua was stunned. Then he looked at Fairy Hongxia's crafty eyes and shy look. His heart swayed. He reached out and hugged her and said, "Then I will wait for you to be tired." I can't ask for more." Fairy Hongxia's eyes flashed. Her phoenix eyes were like silk. "However, Xiaohua, You have to activate the formation of this valley of ice first. Haha, isn't that easy? Xiaohua waved his hand. Dozens of talismans hit the ice layer nearby. These dozens of talismans were the rabbit talismans that Xiaohua had refined in the past few years. Following Xiaohua's hand seals, a transparent light barrier of several hundred feet slowly rose up, covering the entire cave and the sky above the valley. Soon after, the two phoenix celestial bodies appeared, and the entire light barrier was instantly filled with boundless spring scenery. Several hours later, the light barrier slowly disappeared and the cave was revealed. Fairy Hongxia was neatly dressed, but her face was still red. She snuggled in Xiaohua's arms and whispered, "Xiaohua, you are really amazing. There are many places where your husband is powerful. It's not just talking about just now, right?" Xiaohua said with a smile. "Of course. How could I not know how powerful you were just now? That goes without saying, right?" Fairy Hongxia narrowed her eyes and said, "What I want to say is, you are only a qi refining stage cultivator, but your magical power is not inferior to mine. Even after I entered the middle stage of foundation establishment, your magic power continued to grow. This is completely different from what this concubine knows. My wife, have you been wanting to ask this for a long time?" Xiaohua smiled and said, "It must have been hard for you to hold it in for so long." Fairy Hongxia's left thumb and index finger kneaded Xiaohua's palm in a disorderly manner. She replied, "Although I have become one with my husband, you and I are both cultivators. In terms of cultivation, we are different. There are some things that are better not to ask. I believe my wife still remembers the body meridians that we saw when we first merged yin and yang?" Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, "Of course, my husband has already said this before." Fairy Hongxia nodded. Her expression did not change, and she did not show any surprise. "Do you still need me to explain?" Xiaohua saw Fairy Hongxia's expression and already knew, so he asked with a smile. There is no need. Actually, I have already guessed it, but I have not confirmed it with you." Fairy Hongxia nodded. "My husband must have found another meridian to cultivate after the qi refining meridians." Yes. Xiaohua did not hide it. No wonder. With such a cultivation level, husband actually failed his first attempt at foundation establishment. Even now he is still at qi refinement. This level of endurance. TSK, even I would not be able to endure it. Fairy Hongxia giggled. Yes, this path is very narrow. Although my magic power has improved, my realm has not changed. Even my aura does not appear. When I fight with a foundation establishment cultivator, it is very limited. Xiaohua lamented. Even today when I fight with you, I am afraid that just your aura alone is enough to make me afraid. Fairy Hongxia nodded. Exactly. This is also the reason why this concubine did not dare to try those meridians after thinking for so many years. However, since you and I have this opportunity to peek into the secrets of the meridians, it must be a gift from the heavens. It will be useful in the future. Xiaohua scratched his head. Perhaps. By the way, my husband, you practice that fist technique dozens of times every day. Does it really have the effect of tempering your bones? Seeing this, Fairy Hongxia changed the topic. This fist technique seems to be something that mortals pursue, right? Of course it is. Xiaohua smiled. Otherwise, your husband will not practice it every day. Fairy Hongxia curled her lips and said disapprovingly, "I always feel that you are a sheep's head but dog meat, ha ha ha." Xiaohua stretched out his hand and tickled Fairy Hongxia, laughing. "How can there be such a wife in this world? Ha ha ha." Fairy Hongxia shrunk her body and begged for mercy. Where was the cold feeling that she had in front of others? After a while, Fairy Hongxia hugged Xiaohua's neck and said reluctantly, "My husband, this concubine really wants to follow you like this and live in this valley of ice for the rest of my life." Xiaohua leaned over and kissed Fairy Hongxia, laughing. "Your husband also wants to do the same. However, your thoughts are the same as mine. It is just the length of this life." Yes, Fairy Hongxia's eyes were a little blurred. Of course, if I have it one day, I will have no regrets in this life. But who doesn't want to be together forever? Who doesn't want to have it even longer? So Xiaohua held Fairy Hongxia's face and said, temporary separation is necessary for us to have it even longer. Fairy Hongxia was overjoyed and rubbed her face on Xiaohua's hand. This concubine was still worried that my husband would scold this concubine. You little brat. Xiaohua said tenderly, Senior Kaiqin's words and actions are not something that we can imitate. However, the heavenly Tao that she is pursuing is not wrong, and is also what we are pursuing. Your thoughts are also what your husband thinks. How can your husband be an obstacle to your cultivation? Your husband will always be the spur to your cultivation. Ha ha ha. Dream on. Fairy Hongxia rolled her eyes at Xiaohua. This concubine is already a foundation establishment middle stage cultivator, and has already completed the incomplete ice wind mental cultivation technique. What about you? When will you be able to build your foundation? TSK, you are the one who is beautiful. Xiaohua smacked his lips. Who gave you your foundation establishment middle stage cultivation? Who helped you to complete the incomplete ice wind mental cultivation technique? Isn't it because of your husband's hard work? Bah. Fairy Hongxia spat, her face slightly red. Is that hard work or enjoyment? Both. Xiaohua said with a bashful smile. Entertainment for cultivation. However, Fairy Hongxia said solemnly, husband, you must remember that if you come to my Huanhua sect to propose marriage, without surpassing this concubine's cultivation, I'm afraid it won't work. And this husband knows. Xiaohua's face was also solemn. This husband will not let you wait for too long. It's okay. Fairy Hongxia instantly became tender. This concubine will wait for you in this life. You are so good. Hongxia. Xiaohua could not help but pull Fairy Hongxia into his arms again. However, just as this tender feeling rose, Xiaohua's waist felt a slight pain. Xiaohua's ears rang again. This concubine is good, but Shui is not. Xiaohua immediately frowned and frowned. Several months later, in the Ice Valley, Xiaohua and Fairy Hongxia were reluctant to part. Fairy Hongxia whispered, after parting today, I don't know when we will meet again. This concubine misses you so much. Xiaohua held Fairy Hongxia's soft hand and whispered, your ice wind mental cultivation technique has already reached large success. What you lack is not something this husband can help you with. If you continue to cultivate here, it will only be harmful to you. You should hurry to find Senior Kaiqin and see how to cultivate next. This husband's cultivation can be considered to have come to an end. If there are no accidents, I will be able to build my foundation in 4 to 5 years. 4 to 5 years. Fairy Hongxia was somewhat disappointed. Husband's cultivation is so deep, can't it be slightly earlier? Hee, one can only progress step by step. Some things can't be rushed. Xiaohua smiled. Moreover, if you go to find Senior Kaiqin, what ancestral inheritance of your Kai family? Won't it take several years? When your cultivation has made progress, this husband will also build his foundation. You still can't build your foundation, you still have to surpass this concubine. Why don't you also stop cultivating? No way. Fairy Hongxia hugged Xiaohua's arm and said, this concubine also doesn't know where the ancestral inheritance of the Kai family is. Otherwise, husband can go there to find this concubine. Xiaohua smiled. Didn't my wife already give this concubine the Kai family's secret talisman to this husband? When I get closer, I will naturally be able to sense it. Are we still using the talisman? Fairy Hongxia's eyes were slightly curved, as if there was water in her eyes. Haha, that's true. Even if this husband can't sense it, the phoenix celestial body can too. Xiaohua laughed. Sigh. Xiaohua, this concubine really didn't expect that this husband also has the phoenix bloodline. This marriage is really a gift from the heavens to you and me. Xiaohua scratched his head. This husband really doesn't know about this matter. I have no idea where to start. I know that you have already lost your memory. Fairy Hongxia said lovingly. This concubine will also secretly pay attention to help you find your origin. Hee. On the other hand, my senior sister always thought that her mother was long gone. Who knew? Fairy Hongxia's face changed slightly, and quickly said, Master doesn't want others to know about this matter. Husband, please don't tell Xiao Xianrui Sai, is it necessary? What's the point of cultivating to this extent? Xiaohua was speechless. Master is also a pitiful person. Fairy Hongxia rebuked. Do you think that others are like you, blessed by the heavens? Chapter 1790. Yes, even if Senior Kai-Chin has your luck, my master doesn't have my bloodline. Xiaohua was disappointed as he thought of Xiao Hongyue's voice and smile. Fairy Hongxia empathized with Xiaohua's thoughts. She leaned against Xiaohua and lowered her head. After a long while, Fairy Hongxia pushed Xiaohua reluctantly and said, "It's getting late. I have to go to the Peach Blossom Valley to find my master. You should leave too." Fairy Hongxia was still a little confused and asked, "Husband, I've already told you the way out of the Huanhua sect. But how are you going to get out? Or you should stay in the Valley of Ice and cultivate. Wait for me to go out and find a suitable way. Then I'll bring you out." "Haha, my wife, don't be afraid. You go first." Xiaohua smiled confidently and said, "I have ways to get out." "Are you serious?" Fairy Hongxia was definitely worried. "Why don't?" "There's no need," Xiaohua said firmly. "You should go and find your master quickly. Maybe she'll be happy to see you in the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage." "Haha, that's for sure." Fairy Hongxia smiled and said, "Although my master looks cold, she'll be happy to see me in the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage." "Haha, then why doesn't she care about her own daughter?" "Sigh, I'm not going to talk about this with you." Fairy Hongxia shook her head. "I don't know what my master thinks. But these are her trivial matters. You and I don't have to worry about it." "Oh right, that Yin Jichong caused trouble. The Huanhua sect punished you by going into seclusion for 20 years. You're leaving the Valley of Ice today. You won't be in any trouble, right?" Xiaohua asked again, sounding very sentimental. However, when Fairy Hongxia heard this, she felt exceptionally sweet. She said in a low voice, "Don't worry, Langjun. A normal foundation establishment cultivator would need at least 50 years of bitter cultivation to advance from the early stage to the middle stage. Moreover, it has only been less than 10 years since she advanced to the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage." Even if she was a little biased towards Langjun during the Feather Immortal Assembly and lost face for our Huanhua sect, this advancement is enough to make up for the so-called mistakes from before. Moreover, Master is a golden core stage cultivator, much more powerful than Yin Guichong's master. Previously, I came to the Valley of Ice because I wanted to avoid that fellow's entanglement. Otherwise, Fairy Hongxia said proudly. Good. Xiaohua clapped his hands and said, "As long as my wife is not afraid. When your husband has the chance, I will definitely beat that Yun Xiaochong until his nose is black and his face is swollen. With my dear Xiao, I have nothing to fear." Fairy Hongxia said tenderly. "That Su Yinyin's family is not easy to deal with. If our Kai family has the Phoenix bloodline, then the Yin family has the Flame Dragon bloodline." It's just some Flame Dragon bloodline. "Even if it's a true dragon, your husband will still pull out its dragon tendon," Xiaohua said indifferently. After that, Xiaohua and Fairy Hongxia were affectionate for a long time. Only then did Fairy Hongxia bid farewell to Xiaohua. She waved her hand and flew into the sky, heading towards the Valley of Peach Blossoms. After Fairy Hongxia left, Xiaohua looked around. Looking at the Valley of Ice where he had lived with Fairy Hongxia for many years, he couldn't help but feel emotional. He escaped from the wind of the netherworld in the netherworld. After a few teleportations, he actually came to the Valley of Ice of the Huanhua sect. After that, Xiaohua searched everywhere in the Valley of Ice a few times. Although there was a cold wind in the depths of the valley, what he saw with his Dharma eyes was very different from the wind of the netherworld. However, why was it different? The Dharma eyes couldn't see too far. Xiaohua himself couldn't take the risk to fly in and check it out. In addition, there was another strange thing. Xiaohua clearly remembered that he had put the roots of the netherworld lotus into the space, but when he took the time to check, the roots of the netherworld lotus were actually not in the space. Now that Xiaohua's cultivation had reached the peak of the 17th layer of qi refining, the space was a lot bigger. But Xiaohua's mind was very clear about the things inside the space. This kind of strange thing, ever since the space was formed, had never happened before. However, Xiaohua had Goldie ask Little Silver about it. Little Silver said that it had never seen it before. It seemed that Xiaohua didn't store the roots of the Netherworld lotus in his space at all. Forget it. I was already lucky to be able to escape from the wind of the Netherworld and run into Fairy Hongxia. Let's not talk about these external things. Xiaohua slapped his forehead and thought. Now that I'm about to advance to the next level, this young master can use another fire essence flame crystal to advance to Qi refinement level 18. Foundation establishment. Foundation establishment. This young master has finally reached foundation establishment after all the twists and turns. I should hurry back to the Imperial Thunder sect. It's already been almost 5 years. If it wasn't for Fairy Hongxia's cultivation, this young master would have gone back long ago. I don't know why Shifu and Shueshui are so worried. As he thought about this, Xiaohua had the urge to soar into the sky and immediately appear in front of the Imperial Thunder sect. Hee, I still can't tell Fairy Hongxia how I'm going to get out. Xiaohua's lips curled into a faint sneaky smile. If she knew, wouldn't she not even trust her own husband? As he spoke, Xiaohua used the sky-stealing sun-swapping secret technique. His body gradually became shorter and fatter, and the bones on his face also changed slightly. A moment later, a cloud chong appeared in the Valley of Ice. Cough cough, Xiaohua changed his voice again and said in a low voice. Fortunately, this young master's hair has already grown out. Otherwise it would really be difficult. After speaking, Xiaohua's figure flew up. His speed was several times faster than Fairy Hongxia's. His figure swept across the sky, and there was actually a faint sound of wind and thunder. It was the Imperial Thunder sect's bright thunder escape technique. After flying for the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, Xiaohua stopped in midair with a smile on his face. He thought to himself, this bright thunder escape technique is indeed much more brilliant than the awakening thunder escape technique. However, this movement is also not small. Although I've just touched the threshold, there are already some sounds of wind and thunder when I use it. Damn it, if I cultivate to the thunderclap 9th heaven, it will really be like thunder and lightning, shocking the 9 heavens. After that, Xiaohua looked at the direction and used an ordinary flying technique, flying towards the mountain gate of the Huanhua sect. The route that Fairy Hongxia told him was naturally a remote route. There weren't any Huanhua sect disciples passing by. Xiaohua flew for several days and didn't encounter any signs of human habitation. Seeing that he would reach the mountain gate of the Huanhua sect in half a day, Xiaohua's heart was slightly relieved. Although Xiaohua told Fairy Hongxia that there was no need to worry, how could it be easy for him to imitate Yun Guichong? Yun Guichong was a foundation establishment stage cultivator. His appearance could be imitated, but his pressure and cultivation couldn't be imitated. Moreover, Xiaohua didn't have Yun Guichong's identity token on him. It was impossible for him to easily enter the mountain gate. However, Xiaohua naturally had his own reasons for taking on the appearance of Yun Guichong. As a matter of fact, after Xiaohua had been standing guard for half a day, sure enough, an aura refining disciple flew past in the air. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.